Welcome, everyone. I'm going to call the Select Board meeting of Tuesday, January 6, 2026 to order. We had an executive session at 5:30 and no decisions had been made. And this is a regular meeting. John, was it properly warned?
Yes, Liz, it was.
Great. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
I'm not aware of any.
All right, thank you. All right, let's approve the minutes from December 16th and December 22nd. May I have a motion?
I move to approve the meeting minutes that were just mentioned.
Great. All Select Board members in favor of approving the minutes from December 16th and December 22nd, please raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's 5-0. Chair's remarks. I went to the doctor's the other day and he said there was the flu everywhere. So go home and wash your hands. I wanted to just say that we have a full house today and everyone is welcome to speak. There'll be a 2-minute limit and I have a sign-in sheet for each section of tonight's report. That would be public participation and then each of the agenda items. And the reason is that I've been criticized for not properly addressing people. So if you write down your name and I have your name and I can pronounce it, then I think we'll all be on better footing. So that's the rules. And basically, you're all welcome. You're all welcome to speak. And please, no personal attacks. So, manager's comments.
Yes, I just wanted to wish everyone a Happy New Year. I hope your 2026 is fantastic. Unfortunately, we closed out the end of last year with a fire on the afternoon of December 27th on the 6th floor of the Samuel Elliott Apartments at 107 Elliott Street. That fire was extinguished by the well-functioning sprinkler system in that high-rise building, but it caused damage to 18 apartments. I wanted to thank the Brattleboro Fire Department for their response to this emergency and also wanted to thank those who supported this response for the town, including the Brattleboro Police Department, the Brattleboro Department of Public Works, the Recreation and Parks Department, Chesterfield Fire Department, Keene Fire, Guilford Fire, Putney Fire, Dummerston Fire, Greenfield Fire, Westminster Fire, the Cheshire County Ambulance, and Green Mountain Power. The coordination of the professionals in these organizations allowed for a quick stabilization of the situation and quick assistance to the residents. The Brattleboro Housing Partnerships and the American Red Cross acted quickly and efficiently to help the significant number of people who were displaced due to the extensive water damage in the building. Christine Hazard, the executive director at Brattleboro Housing Partnerships, updated me today. There are 13 households in hotels. 4 households are staying elsewhere. 1 apartment was unoccupied at the time of the fire. The BHP resident services staff are supporting those who were displaced and are looking for long-term support. Their contractor ServPro completed drying of the building and in targeted areas, and another contractor, GPI, was hired to complete additional construction. There's a target date of January 15th for 8 of the households to be back in the building, and a target date of January 30th for 4 additional households. 6 remaining apartments will be displaced longer. The BHP employees have been working many extra hours over the last week and to continue to go above and beyond to support their residents during this time, both the residents on Elliott Street as well as elsewhere in Brattleboro Housing Partnerships properties. If you'd like to contribute to this effort, we've had requests about people wanting to know what they can do. Donations can be remitted by check or money order payable to Brattleboro Housing Opportunities, Inc. 100% of every contribution will go directly to residents to replace damaged items. remit to Brattleboro Housing Opportunities, Inc., P.O. Box 2275, Brattleboro. Their federal ID number is 56-240-5695. Brattleboro.
Could you repeat that number?
Yep, the 56-240-5695. Brattleboro Housing Partnership staff and board are extremely grateful to the town and the town departments for their support and collaboration during this difficult time. The increased partnerships that have been built over the last few years has laid a foundation which created much more positive outcomes in this event than would otherwise have been expected. Town clerk asked me to remind everyone that petitions for Brattleboro town officers, Wyndham Southeast School District board members, and town meeting members are available at the town clerk's office during open business hours from Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. to 5 p.m., any of those days. Completed petitions are due back to the town clerk's office by 5 p.m. on Monday, January 26th for town officers and representative town meeting members. Incumbents for RTM members who have terms expiring will be mailed a notice of intent form in early January and must return their signed notice of intent form by also 5 p.m. on Monday, January 26th. Town elections will be on Tuesday, March 3rd at the American Legion located at 32 Linden Street. An annual representative town meeting will begin on Saturday, March 21st, 2026 at 8:30 a.m. in the Brattleboro High School Gymnasium. Also, emails have gone out to dog owners this morning about dog license renewals. We became aware that there's an error with some of the fees that were charged, and anyone who has overpaid will receive a refund on the difference to their card as soon as we fix that issue. And that is everything I had.
Great, thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Are there select board members who would like to comment?
I'd love to say something. I want to say Happy New Year, everyone. I want to express some gratitude because this December has been one of the coldest that I can remember. I want to express gratitude for our social service agencies that have been working to keep our neighbors warm this winter with overnight shelter. Groundworks, Beloved Shelter, Brattleboro Housing Partnerships, with the support of our Brattleboro Police Department, Brattleboro Fire Department, and our EMS and our Brattleboro Rec. So thank you. I also want to express gratitude for an amazing miniature festival, the first annual. I've been informed, as we all probably have, that it's going to happen again next year. So a lot of appreciation for Downtown Brattleboro Alliance, Melanie Kahn, who spearheaded the project. This project brought energy and visitors to make our Main Street really bright over the last 40 days. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Very good. Then let me ask members of the public if they would like to speak on a topic that is not on tonight's agenda. And Seth has a sign-up sheet. There are not many names on it, so if you would like to speak, I'll leave this with you, Seth.
There's more out there.
Yeah. Okay. Kate O'Connor.
Hi, everybody. Kate O'Connor, Brattleboro. I am getting up to ask you folks to take something off the consent agenda, which is the HVAC rooftop unit at the fire department. And I would like to see you have a public discussion about that because while in the backup materials there's an explanation of the problem, there's really not a complete explanation on why the HVAC money is coming out of the fire engine replacement fund, because obviously the HVAC is not a fire engine. So I think the public deserves an explanation of why that money is being used and not another source of expenses.
Let me remind you, Kate, that it is being discussed in our budget discussions.
But it's under the consent agenda to approve that expenditure. So it would be really, and using the FY26 money. So it would be really nice before you folks approve that so that the public can understand why you're using fire engine replacement money. So I would love it if you would take it off the consent agenda.
Who's next? Ivan Hennessy.
Hello, Ivan Hennessy, Brattleboro, Vermont. Happy New Year. I think that it's a great chance to do a little bit of reflecting, and in reflecting over the course of select board meetings last year, I stumbled upon a recollection of something that was quite alarming. The intent to use a business mindset to approach town matters. And the town is not a business. The town does not have customers or shareholders or owners. I understand that people try to use business as a shorthand for fiscal responsibility, but fiscal responsibility is fairly rare in business, and it's certainly not the defining characteristic. Business is defined as being for a certain select group, and a town cannot be for a certain select group. I hope that this year the town government will be for the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy Blodgett.
Hi, Randy Blodgett, District 7. Consent agenda problem with the HVAC as well, and I think I'd like to see where is that on a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, a 20-year plan of all the HVACs in town, because this is going to be a problem, things wear out. So we should be planning for that and have a place to pull it from. And so I'd like to just make sure we're going to do that.
All right. Ken Fay.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Oh.
Because I could and then I couldn't.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. I would just like to comment on what I learned in the past week or so, that our fabulous library director, Star Latronica, is leaving in a few months. I wanted to thank her for her service in the community. I haven't been here that long, but it is she has been great for the library, and the library is a great place. And I hope you remember that during budget discussions and not try to. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, okay. And not try to save pennies on the dollar by cutting the library's expenses. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else who would like to speak about an item that is not? All right. Eric Karen.
Thank you. I just wanted to also add my concern about the HVAC issue being on the consent agenda. I'd like to have it pulled, please, so we can have a more full discussion. And secondarily, I read about the hard work the Department of Public Works did in the freezing cold on that sewer line, and I just think these guys are heroes. So thank you.
Thank you. Tom Grasso.
Good evening. Tom Grasso, resident of Brattleboro and an RTM member. First of all, Happy New Year. I'm going to do something unusual, partly because I read a lot of vitriol in the paper recently about some of the decisions that the Select Board has made recently. So And I say this as somebody who's spent the last 30 years as a public interest environmental lawyer criticizing, challenging government action to do the right thing. So I'm not saying this in this Pollyannish way that you might think, but I want to thank the 3 members of the Select Board who voted for the zoning ordinance at the last meeting. I think it was a tough decision to make, but that's the job you have to do where you're sitting right now. So thank you. I also want to thank the fact that we have a great program of support for the police department, the fire department, social services, the library, roads, education, all things that make up a great society, and I hope we continue to support those programs, all of them. If we're going to cut the budget, let's cut things that aren't fundamental to what makes a society successful. If we want economic development in this town, you need to have things that people want to see as business people who want to come to this town. If you don't have a police department, if you don't have programs that help people in need, if you don't have a fire department, if you don't have education, then what are we doing here? Should we just get rid of all those things and just, we can all, throw our trash in the streets, pay for our kids to go to private education? Some of us can do that. A lot of us can't. So in a progressive community, we should be supporting the sort of social services that make this a good place to live. Thank you, and I'm going home for dinner.
Thank you. Jane Congleton.
Hello, I'm Jane. I grew up in Brattleboro. I'm a dancer and an artist and a childcare provider, and I wanted to add to the list of folks and groups keeping people warm this winter. Am I supposed to speak to things that are not on the agenda today? Cool. I have been horrified by the zoning ordinance that was passed recently, which directly targeted places like 69A Elliott, which is now at 134 Elliott. It's open 10 to 4, Monday to Friday typically. I think it's opening again on the 8th because some of the folks holding it down there have been needing to respond to the level of attack that space has been under. And as a place that is warm and open for literally anyone to come and ask questions and bring all of their confusion and to be curious about that space in the face of all of the misinformation that has traveled around the town about it. It's been a life-saving place for me, and I like this logic. I also wanted to ask if anyone in the select board has ever had a friend in jail that you've tried to contact on the phone, but I'm not expecting you to answer that. I'm wondering if you've ever had a friend psychiatrically incarcerated, and if you've ever had to try to call them. From that moment on of trying to reach them on the phone, you will see that there are so many levels of isolation. Donald Trump is advocating to hospitalize involuntarily every homeless person across the country. And this logic of isolation is not different from what the town of Brattleboro has been implementing to suggest that people should not be allowed to rest and sleep and eat and have housing. And a progressive town that is acting this way, progressive means nothing to me when it's being used to describe a town that's acting this way. So I'm really disappointed and alarmed. And I have friends on the street who have cancer, who are elders and are wise and cannot have their art and their wisdom be...
Jane, please wrap it up.
Yes. We need everyone's wisdom to be able to find a solution. So please listen to the people who are most impacted. Thank you.
Thank you. Trish Twinning.
Can you hear me?
Now I can, yes.
Great. Trish Twining, Brattleboro. I just wanted to add my voice to the request to remove the item discussing the rooftop unit at Central Station.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy Davis.
Good evening. I just wanted to add to just a short comment about the program down at 69A. Since I learned about this whole thing last month, I've been in there several times. And I'm just hoping that as they go through their process of working with the Planning and Development Review Board, that the attitude is, as was stated, to work with them to make what they're doing work and not be try to make it not work for them and take away the service that they're offering. I find the place to be compassionate. I've never felt in any danger there. I've run into I'll just leave it, that I've run into former people I worked in as a teacher in the school system. I've seen people have really positive reactions to one another. I've also seen someone getting slightly out of hand and it being handled perfectly. And I just hope that you on the select board work with these people who are creating something that doesn't fit into a neat box that is maybe in traditional planning categories. And I hope that the term third space gets used plenty because it's something we should all learn about. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Peterson.
Hi, can you hear me? Steve Peterson, District 7. I just wanted to express my support for the decisions you made about trying to find a workable solution for the 69A. And I know it was a tough decision, but I believe it was the right decision so that everybody in town can find a way to coexist successfully, harmoniously, peacefully. I think that what 69A is doing is critical. I think what they're doing is noble. I think it's only going to become more and more and more important in the future. So my belief is that we need to be prepared to embrace these types of things, but we need to do it in a smart way that doesn't threaten the viability of, say, that salon that went out of business because of it. We don't have to stomp on other people to care for the ones we love too. And we need to be smart about it. And I think the select board is being smart about it so we can grow the economy to bring in the money to pay for these very things that we want to do for those in need. That's all.
Thank you. All right. Having heard from everyone, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a select board member who would like to pull an item from the consent agenda?
Yeah, let's pull it. Yeah, item G.
Does someone want to make a formal motion?
I can make the motion. I make a motion to remove item G, replace rooftop unit at Central Station from the consent agenda.
All select board members in favor of removing item G from the consent agenda, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Great. That passes 3-2.
For the minutes, do you want to ask who's voting against that?
Sure. Anyone not in favor of opening up the consent agenda, please raise your hand and say aye. Anyone abstaining?
I'll just be present.
There you go. All right. John, you want to give us a nickel tour of the remaining items on the consent agenda?
You bet. So then you have 8 items on your consent agenda tonight. If you approve this agenda, you'll be approving the official naming of the town property at 805 Western Ave as the Whetstone Food Forest. You'll be accepting a proposal from Stone Boat Consulting for final design, permitting, bidding assistance, and construction phase support for the Church Street retaining wall project at a cost of $13,100. You'll be approving a tobacco substitute endorsement permit for J&K store located at 69 Elliott Street. You'll be approving a parade permit for a Homelessness Awareness Action Day parade on Thursday, January 22nd, from Pliny Park to Main Street to Elliott Street. You will be authorizing the Department of Public Works to apply for a $5,000 Urban and Community Forestry Program grant on behalf of the Tree Advisory Board. You'll be ratifying the decision to replace 2 inline turbine pumps at the wastewater treatment plant for a cost of $37,600. You will be authorizing the evaluation and preliminary engineering of the Sunset Lake Dam as required by the Vermont Dam Safety Program for a cost of $46,000. And finally, you will be approving the Small Business Assistance Program loan application from India Masala House for a $45,000 loan at 5% interest for 7 years, as recommended by the Small Business Assistance Program Loan Committee.
Great. Is there someone who would like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
I would like to move that we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Great. Isaac has made a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended. All select board members in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
And that's 5-0. You did vote for that, didn't you, Peter?
Oh yeah, I was all in.
I didn't hear your head rattle.
I was all in.
Okay. Okay. Next item is regular business. Item A is removal of encampments, a presentation by 69A, Groundworks, and the town health officer. Let me invite Lisa Marie and Caitlin to the table to present. Thank you. Isaac, did you have any introductory remarks you'd like to make before they begin?
Oh, well, thank you. I hadn't planned on saying anything here, but I'll just say welcome and thank you for taking the time to talk with us. I had asked for this issue to be placed on the agenda because in, I believe it was the end of August or early September, there was an article in the Commons about removal of encampments that had raised some concerns for me, and I'd heard from members of the public about some questions, both about the process of the removals and as well as the as just people expressing concerns about the way the fact that there wasn't a designated camping place and struggling to find out where was acceptable to camp. So I thought it would be useful to hear a little bit about what that process is and what are opportunities for improvements and potential collaboration to make this work better, understanding there are many people who are affected by this policy, both people who are camping and people who are our neighbors and other community members.
Great. Lisa Marie and Caitlin, please welcome, and whomever would like to speak or speak first, please proceed.
Thank you. I want to thank you for having us. Also, briefly, personally, I've already sent this to the select board, but want to apologize for anyone else in front of whom I've yelled at meetings before. I might cry tonight. That's like the other option. I want when we ask questions about policy, I feel like there's some sense that there's an embedded criticism about the people who are involved in enacting them or the intentions of the people, and that is not. We're asking real questions because we are seeking real solutions, and we certainly don't question that people having to carry out enactment sweeps and removals do so with empathy and or don't want to do it or have the best intentions, and officially in their job capacity do their best to connect people with the service agencies in town. We also don't question that individuals working at the service agencies in town or the agencies themselves don't have the best of intentions and do their best to connect people with official resources. The issue is that there are not official resources to connect people to. There is no next step from, no matter how good of an intention someone is going to an encampment in Brattleboro with, there is nowhere to go. There is no shelter to go to. In Brattleboro, all of the hotel beds are full. We can sometimes find people a bed in Bennington or Rutland or Bellows Falls, but then we can't get people there. 92% of the shelter beds in Vermont are full. There's the official count is 3,500. I think the database count is 4,500 homeless people in Vermont, and there's 600 and something beds in the hotel program. There are no shelters, and more so, there are no next step solutions. There's no transitional housing. There are no recovery programs. There's no sober housing. Like, again, I acknowledge my part in this, but I feel like a lot of the conversation revolves around what we don't agree upon. I think that we all agree upon a lot of things. A lot of us don't want to see homeless people on the street. Maybe we don't agree upon the reason for that, but that is the fundamental truth. And that's it. We just want people to be connected with the next step of resources, but the reality of it is that there aren't any, and that is continuously in the narrative being overlooked. And it's reported as though people are just living in the woods because they've used up all their voucher programs or they don't want to get a job, and all of that is just simply not true. When you don't have housing and you don't have access to that, you don't have access to it's just an endless loop. I know everybody here knows that. I don't need to explain it to you. But if you don't have dentistry, you don't have teeth, you can't get a job, you can't get housing. If you don't have housing, you can't get a job. If you don't have an address, you can't get a license, on in an endless loop. And they're really, again, I fully do, I'm not just paying lip service, I really do believe in literally every individual's best intentions when they're going through this stuff. But as a community, as neighborhoods, as a town, as a state, and as a country, we do not have solutions in place to help people exit these horrifying and absolutely untenable situations that they get into for all kinds of reasons and is impossible to get out of. And all we are asking you to do, I'm very nerve-wracked being here because we have received so many personal attacks. Like, we are getting personally attacked. Like, why? I really, I know this is about encampments, but like, the people who are in the encampments are the same people at 69A, and I feel like part of the issue is that people genuinely can't believe that we wouldn't be a charity agency because people can't believe we are just there with our neighbors, really trying to help our neighbors, like, be okay. And I really invite all y'all to come spend time with us there. Like, you will see it's not what you think that it is.
Lisa Marie, would you like to add?
Yeah. So a lot of people get moved along, whether they're sleeping on a bench, sleeping on the sidewalk, sleeping in a tent. And I understand that, everyone needs a place to sleep. And I understand that a lot of people are afraid of people who don't have a place to sleep. And hobophobia is severe in this town. And it's very sad. And it goes from all the way from the top to the bottom. And, I try to educate people a lot. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Do I have all the answers? Absolutely not. No one does. And do I pretend I have the answers? I try not to. I really try not to say, oh yeah, I know when I don't know. I'll tell you straight up, I don't know, And the problem is no one has a place to go. And having encampment removals, is a serious issue, because then there's more people technically on the street. And I don't know if people understand what that truly means. It's not about garbage. It's not about needles. It's not about alcohol. It is about women getting raped because they are cuddling next to the wrong person. to stay alive in the winter. There is one in particular person who gets raped every single night out there on the streets, and they are too afraid to go to the police. They are afraid because they are afraid they're going to get in trouble. They're afraid nothing's going to happen. They're afraid the person's going to find out and it's going to get worse. They are afraid for so many different reasons. There are people who are getting beating, and not just from other homeless people. This is not homeless on homeless crimes out here, guys. And that is a serious issue in this town. And no one is talking about it. Yes, okay, I understand no one wants to see a bum laying in the street. I get it. Do I want to see that? Hell no. That is why I and Caitlin are trying our hardest to do something about it. Yes, we're a little art space trying to make a difference in this town because there are so many people who hate. And I know this because I was one of the people who have been hated and still am hated. I have been living on the streets. I have been raped. I have been beaten. I have been so much stuff. I have gone to the cops and asked for help. I have gone to town members for help. And no one helped. So if I can help, I'm going to. If I can fight for a place for someone to sleep, I'm going to. And you know, compromise. This town needs to compromise. Yes, everyone in this community has something to give. Okay, everyone. And a lot of the times people see community as housed. And there are so many community members in here that are not. They have jobs. They have children. They have lives. They have family members. Not everyone is a drug addict. Not everyone is an alcoholic. Some are, yes. Some are straight up jerks. I'm going to say that. And some are really amazing people. Talking to people and saying, hey, you know, can you not deal right here? Is a scary thing. I get it. So don't. Call somebody and say, hey, this is happening. Like, don't assume that it's a little art center's fault that people are crapping in the street, because guess what? They were crapping in the street before we got here, and they're crapping in the street after we leave. You know why? Because there's no public toilets.
I think that's the solution to, like we're saying, there's no, whatever we agree and disagree upon, there's nowhere for people to go. So this problem is not going to go away. So again, sometimes people hear us saying you can't police this away as saying abolish the police. That's not this problem. If the town would experiment with encampment places instead of saying the current, apparently I read through the packet, so the response, so as far as I can tell, the town policy is now going to be people are not allowed to sleep on public property or on private property. So literally, I want someone to tell me where you think people are going to go besides dying. Instead of saying people can't go anywhere, can we designate an area where people can go in town, even just for the winter? That park up above the retreat. Nobody goes there, really. Or they can come there, people say wherever, I don't care where it is. There's a whole beautiful new map that is wonderful and online made available of publicly owned land in this town. If we have a place where people, I have watched encampments, the one encampment that is still up and the one place in town that is still there has been a long-term encampment that has done a very good job of self-regulating and taking care of issues when they've arisen. And that is possible. Like, people are able to work together when given a little bit of agency and a place to actually not feel like they shouldn't exist and that all anyone around them wants is for them not to exist. when they're given that, I've been guaranteeing that out loud. I'm just saying, like, instead of telling everyone where they can't go, and then that leading, if you trace that logic out, there's nowhere for people to go except prison or dying. We have to have, as a community, we have to have another solution. And we have to come up with that together, because it's not coming from the state.
Because 48 shelter beds is not enough for the amount of homeless people in this town.
Which, again, 4,500 statewide, which is definitely an undercount, and 1,500 of which are children under the age of 18, and a bunch of which are disabled and elders. Not to mention all the people who were just displaced from that fire, which I will mention, hasn't been mentioned in any of the official reports. But Lisa Marie also opened 69A that day immediately, so that people displaced by the fire, so I believe should be added to the list of thank yous. But they're all displaced now as well. It's not getting better. Housing prices aren't going down. And I genuinely feel like we should all be in it together, and that is what upsets me when I do get upset. At the very least, the people who are trying to do something could be left a little bit more alone.
So just compromising
or even supported.
And thinking outside the box. You know, more trash receptacles.
These are people I love. We love all these people. We love all these people. We know them and love them. We know their life story. We know their families. Yeah. I've seen their belongings. They're not garbage. Thank you I really appreciate y'all inviting us specifically. Thank you.
Liz, could we ask?
Well, thank you. Pardon me?
We have a moment for questions.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us and your vulnerability and honesty with sharing about your own experiences. The focus really of this conversation is around the removal of the encampments, and I'm interested to hear. And I heard one thing is that people don't have a place to go, so you'd like to see some options, and I heard just at the end, I heard you make the suggestion of more trash receptacles. So that I heard that. There were other things that I had heard, and other concerns that had been raised by that article. Are there any other concerns you have about the process?
Yes.
And how it's being implemented.
The process. Okay, so it is very difficult for people to get their stuff back. Almost impossible, if impossible. People do not have phones. They do not know who to contact. They do not know how to get their stuff. They have no idea. And then they go to certain organizations. Sometimes they are able to help. They go to a business, per se. And we try our hardest to help get their stuff back. We have not been successful yet in doing so. What consists of personal property? Is it just mail? Is it a purse? Is it a keepsake that somebody has kept for 10 years out on the street that may look like garbage but means absolutely everything to that person? You know, personal property means a lot to people who have nothing. And for someone to come in and deem what is personal property and is not, that's a little concerning as well. If there's blankets and things that, don't have mold on them or other hazardous materials on them, is that a personal property or does that go in the trash too? Certain things like that is what people want to know. And it's what people are needing because, getting the stuff that, say, we give somebody an entire thing to be able to sleep, a tent, sleeping bag, a couple of blankets, a pillow, and then a week later, it's gone. It's very hard to get that stuff to begin with and then to replace it and replace it and replace it. It's putting actually more burden on the townspeople who are wanting to help than it is not.
I have personally experienced, the difficulty of, as a person with a phone, on behalf of a number of people, I've called the different places you're supposed to call and find out if they're storing your stuff. In the packet that I read today, it said it's always stored at the Department of Public Works, but that's not been the answer that we get on the phone when we call. And it usually has taken quite a long time to actually talk to a person, and then it's usually a few more phone calls, which again, if someone doesn't have a phone, is never going to happen. And we have been told a number of times, and I am, again, genuinely not criticizing any individual. I think it's just bureaucratic red tape. It's not designed to be useful in this particular situation. But people telling me that they didn't find anything that was worth saving and that it's all just like rotting blankets and garbage. I know that's not true because we give people new stuff every time this happens. So I know that the stuff they have is new. I know it's not rotting and mold covered because we just gave it to them. And I also know, yeah, again, the personal details of stuff people have lost. But again, it's like, we can talk about there's sob stories and then there's politics and all the other stuff. But again, the reality of it is all just, we all can agree on the stuff we don't want to see. We don't want people shitting in the street. We don't want people defecating in the street. We need public bathrooms. If we don't want people carting and leaving their stuff everywhere, we at the very least need public lockers, which could happen down by the new, whatever it is, in the transportation center. If we don't want people sleeping outside, we at the very least need to have dedicated safe places where we can go and community support it and not cost the town anything, and then work to build housing solutions. Public lockers would be amazing.
It would. Because there's literally no place for anyone to store anything.
I'm sorry, Lisa.
There's literally no place for anyone to store anything because 69A cannot do it. We just can't. We don't have the room. Yes, we have a bigger building, but we still don't have the room to store people's belongings. Groundworks, I know, does not store people's belongings.
Same reason.
And so they're going to stash it in a bush if they can't carry it around all day. And then somebody finds it, oh, it's abandoned property, and throws it out, things like that. So just having a simple, solution of put a quarter in to get a key. If they lose the key, well, then that's on them. Something very simple. So that way, personal belongings aren't just strewn all over town. So thanks.
Are there other select board members who would like to comment? Yes.
Just briefly, thank you both for coming. I remember the first couple times I spoke here, and I know it's very stressful, or can be. So I appreciate that. I think it was actually an excellent presentation. I thought you made your points really well, and there's a lot for us to think about. Certainly, I think one of the first early conversations I had after getting elected, John, with you and me, was just sort of talking about the idea of how you could make an officially sanctioned public camping area, and I think both our minds immediately went, as they're going to do, to all the ways that that's sort of scary for the town or causes liability for the town and all that. It's still something I'm interested in. I'm still very intimidated when I try to think it through what that would actually be like. But for me, the core point, which you've highlighted, is the unfairness of a situation where people are being criticized for something that they can't avoid doing, right? And the bathrooms are a great, really specific example of that. Lockers, again, nobody, I think, from any angle wants to see somebody sitting in a pile of their own stuff on the sidewalk. But if you have no apartment to put it in, it's going to be with you. So, it was a great presentation, intense. I'm going to have to digest it, but I appreciate it from both of you.
Anyone else before I open it to the public?
I want to thank you for your courage for coming here and for your testimony. It's very impactful. I also hear some very concrete solutions that you suggest that I think make a ton of sense, starting with the more trash receptacles. So I urge you to submit kind of an idea, proposal, or a map of locations where they could go in the town. if they should have a Sharps thing or whatever, to submit that to the town manager perhaps, and then we can, it's something that would be a budgeted item, but if you think that would help the situation. You know, the storage of items like lockers or whatever, you know, I think we do have an opportunity to collaborate with the work that you do, because you're doing the lived experience work with the people. And so proposing ideas, you know, this is that collaborative piece, so that we can work together. It might not be the whole wish list, but some progress would be better than none.
Exactly. Thank you.
Okay, shall I open it up to the public? Steve? Oh, by the way, I have sign-up sheets for this section as well. So has anyone signed up for this section? Well, then...
You have one online.
Steve, why don't you start, and then other people can sign up.
And you got two online.
Great.
Yeah, Steve Zaluzny. Yeah, I know we've got a really difficult problem in town. We've had it for quite a while. Homelessness, it's not an easy thing to solve, to help people that need help. You know, just want to, as a resident of town for many, many years, born here 70 years ago, as you probably already know. But 15 years ago, on some property that I have in Brattleboro, there are a lot of homeless people encamped on it, similar to what's happening today. So this was quite a while ago. It wasn't current. And somebody told me about it. I could see some activity there, and I said, I feel sorry for them. They don't have a place to live, so I just kind of let it go, for 6 months or so. And then one of my abutters called me and said, well, it appears that these people are stealing some items from their business next door. So he said, we can't, do anything. They're on your property. So I said, well, okay, I'll talk to the police and see what they can do at that point in time. So I did that. And part of my point is here, now we have something in place to deal with some of this. But back then, we were told to leave and take their belongings with them. And when I went down to see what was there, it was quite a mess. There's not sanitary at all, and a lot of trash there. And back then, I didn't think about needles and things like that myself. So they finally left. I saw them on the street back then, just like I see some of the homeless people today, and they said, well, we apologize, we're going to clean that up. I said, great, hopefully they would, but it never happened. That stuff's still there today, where it was. And so recently on the same property in a different location.
Steve, your time's up, so break it up.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay. So now the town has something in place, I didn't know what to do. I saw a property there which was current. Do you go in and remove it? Do people have medications there that they need? Am I liable if I were to remove something? And on the other hand, there are drugs there or there are needles for illegal drugs, So what we've got in place now helped that situation because I didn't know what to do legally. And I think there's a better process now. The only other comment I want to make is I know some people that are concerned with 69A. They have children and they're concerned about what could happen there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else need a sign-up sheet?
Great. I'll take that sign-up sheet and use it, if I may.
Would you like me to get it? Grab it.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Amanda. Spoon Agave.
I think everybody's aware that one of the major topics or subjects in this country, around in many places of the world, is AI. AI is a tool to replace human labor with robotic labor or non-human labor. The unemployment is increasing. The intent, if you study this issue, is to replace as many people as possible, as many human beings as possible. For every million people that are unemployed in this country, if it was spread out equally, there'd be 60,000 in Vermont. And if it was spread out equally in the state, it would be about 120 in Brattleboro. For every million that is out of work in this country. If they put 5 million people out of work, that could be 600 more unemployed in Brattleboro or the area. What will homelessness look like then? This board, this is a tremendous problem. It is nothing like we have ever faced before in our history. This board is not capable of dealing with it. There is nobody that has the background, the information, etc., to deal with this problem. What you are capable of doing is asking for help, because there are solutions. It's going to be, and I know this is very difficult to do, because the real discussion is going to be about, as a community, how do we respond? And there is no way to respond without sharing. Sharing is not a part of the American way of life.
Mr. Agave, please wrap it up.
It has to become a way of life.
Thank you. Ivan Hennessy.
Ivan Hennessy, Brattleboro, Vermont. Something that people in this setting will not be willing to say. This is a very polite place, despite how emotions may be raised. Something that people are not willing to say in a place like this is there are people in this town, maybe even in this room, who believe that if we're unpleasant enough to people, they will flee. They will go away and they won't be our problem. And I got to tell you, it's a fantasy. There is not like a highly mobile homeless population. People with no resources don't have the resources to just run away. We can't destroy their homes so many times that it's not worth it to be here, because this is where they are. It gets fed by the fantasy that, you know, like during the pandemic, everyone came here. No. A few people came here maybe, but it takes money to travel. And one of the things that poor people don't have is money. So when people encourage you to limit services, to maybe not put as much effort into making sure that people can get their stuff back, they're pushing that agenda of cruelty that assumes that people are mobile or hopes that they're going to die. That's an agenda that people are pushing on you. Please watch out for it.
Thank you. Mr. DeGray.
Mr. DeGray, I think District 8. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for your apology. I've been where you're going, so I know what passion's all about. One of the things that you did bring up, two things actually. One was the bathroom situation, and I know that the redo in the transportation center is supposed to have public access bathrooms. That's my understanding. I thought that was part of the project, so if someone could fill me in on that. And then the second thing that I heard was that there is an encampment that's still existing today. And I thought that was quite interesting. And you said because it is being well maintained. And I don't know if we're going to hear the other side of the coin about why these encampments and what happens when they take them down and how filthy they are and all the needles and everything else that we read about and hear about. I did speak with a board member and said that if there's space to be given by the town, that needs to be part of the conversation, that we just can't let people have encampments and not maintain the property that they're on. That's one of the scary issues, I think, for the town, and I think Oscar just alluded to it. So if someone could talk to me about the bathroom issues, and I don't know where the discussion is going to go, if the town could possibly open up spots, but there needs to be rules for that if that happens, and if they can't be abided by, then I'm for taking them down, because just because you're homeless doesn't mean you have to be, for lack of a better word, a pig, as my mother used to say about my room.
May I make a clarifying remark? Is that okay?
Pardon me?
May I make a clarifying remark?
Sure.
I want to clarify. One reason that camp is stable, actually the main reason that camp is stable is because it's been allowed to be there for a while. It's impossible to build stability and any sense of like a clean home when you're constantly like moved around or trespassed from one place to another. So just all kinds of data from here and elsewhere show like people, yeah, it's long term. I mean, it's like self-regulating, and then people come help clean it up enough that it is, again, when you give people the support and resources they need, because again, you actually can't help living like a quote-unquote pig. I assume that outside of your room, you had a bathroom, and also your room had walls, and your house probably had a trash can. So if your room was messy, you had solutions for that. If you're outside and you don't have a bathroom and there are no trash cans.
Also, can I say something about this one particular camp really quick? This camp has been located there for about 3 years. I know this because I helped set it up. There is 3 kind of like porta johns, kind of. They're camping toilets that has a human manure composting thing that people can put it in. There's a lot of really cool things there that makes life easier. But the one really big thing that they do have trouble with is garbage. So they do have like cleanups there and things like that within the community and getting help from outside. But sometimes they're allowed to use business as dumpsters, but it's still very difficult with the trash there because throwing trash out is difficult when there's no home to say, hey, let's take the trash out today.
No car.
And no one there has a car. So, okay, thanks. Sorry.
Bill Harvey. I'll answer the bathroom question when the town presents.
Yes, Bill Harvey. A bit of a testimonial from homelessness to wholesome living. I just want to say to everybody that when I was born at the age of 2 months, I was burned by a vaporizer, exploding vaporizer that exploded in my crib, and it went all over my legs, and it kept me from staying in the service. I have a medical discharge because of that. I also want to say that at the age of 17, actually 16, my mom and dad had been divorced since I was 7, and my mom said to me, I'm selling the house and you're not going to be able to move in with me because I don't have enough money to support you. So at the age of 16 and a half, 17, I found myself homeless. Well, back in the 60s and during that area, we called ourselves hippies. And what we did is we established a commune. Not uncommon. The difference, the major difference between what happened then and what is happening now is that at that time, this town, this area was very pro-industry and pro-business. I graduated from high school in 1970, and I was able to get a job because there was a Brattleboro book press, because there was a Consell, because there was an American Optical. And you could have a high school diploma and get a very good job with a living wage. With a living wage. I could afford to have a car, transportation, and I could afford to have an apartment. I actually got a mobile home. And then I got married, and life went on from there. And I'd like to make, quickly, just 3 quick suggestions. I think that the idea that was established a long time ago that somehow the Vermont area would become an industry where people would want to come and visit and go skiing and do all these other things. I think we need to bring industry back. I know that's a long-range plan, and I know how hard it is for businesses, but I would also suggest a graduating minimum wage rather than a regular minimum wage for everybody, and people aren't going to work at an early age anymore, that perhaps from 14 to 18, minimum wage $10 an hour. From 18 to 24, whatever, maybe $12 an hour, and so on. So that people could start with a work ethic early in life, because that's what happened to me. And I'd also like to say, on top of that, is I think that overall, we as Americans need to get back to the realization that families are important. We're at a result right now of a book that was written by a person I won't mention because I was told not to, that it takes a village to raise a person. I want to tell you that sounds good on the outside, but everybody is selfish and greedy, and nobody wants to share what they have with anybody else. But in a family, you do want to share, because that's blood. And I think we need to get back to the importance of having a family. Mom and dad taking care of their kids.
Thank you. Okay. Veronica Wheelock.
I didn't realize I was signing up to speak.
Oh, if you don't wish to, that's also fine, Veronica, whatever you want.
I'm Veronica Wheelock, District 2. I want to know where these people can go. Where can they go?
Me too.
That is the question, Veronica. That's the policy question that we're here to discuss.
Well, when I think of a good answer, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Let's go online then.
Start with Gemma Seymour.
Gemma Seymour?
Good evening, everyone. I would just like to say that I know I've said this before, but people may not remember. I was homeless when I came to this town, homeless and unemployed. I had no place to go, and an old friend offered me a place in a cabin on the side of a mountain in Dummerston 11 years ago. And so I've had some experience with being homeless, and I've been homeless in this town twice since because of the housing situation, the severe housing shortage here. Not through any, particular fault of my own. I'm not addicted to drugs, anything like that. It's just sometimes it works out that, people who are renting places don't want to rent them anymore, and they evict their tenants. As a member of the Planning Commission now in this town, I would like to offer my services, my time, and my effort, because I'm a person who believes in putting your time, effort, and money where your mouth is, and working on the problem of determining where in this town are good places for trash receptacles, where a good place for possibly a permitted encampment to exist. Now, I understand from both sides of this question that the idea of allocating town land to an encampment raises a number of issues and problems that we would all have to deal with. However, it's my firm belief that this is something that we ought to do. And so I'm willing to put myself on the line, my reputation, my time, my effort, in order to make this happen. So I would very much invite everyone in this town who wants to be involved in this effort to contact me. And my contact information is available at the Brattleboro website. I am a representative town meeting member for District 8 up through 2028 and a member of the Planning Commission up through 2029. I have no plans on going anywhere, and I want to be part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Jessica.
Jessica?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to join the Select Board meeting today. My name is Jessica Radbourne. I'm a senior staff attorney at the ACLU of Vermont. And I'm here tonight to ask the Select Board to table the motion to adopt the town's encampment response approach. First, I'd just like to note that at the ACLU of Vermont, we believe that homelessness should be rare, brief, and non-recurring, and that when people are experiencing homelessness, they should be able to access accessible shelter options. But here, tonight, we're talking about people who are unsheltered. Now, after I became aware of the motion on tonight's agenda earlier today, I had the chance to quickly review Town Manager Potter's December 30th memo. And in the memo, it indicates that you reviewed civil rights guidance from organizations, including the ACLU of Vermont. And the memo also indicates that the policy is fully aligned with this guidance. But I am here with an offer for you. We'd like to have time to review the proposed policy in greater detail so that we can provide you with tailored feedback. We have data. We have data specific to Vermont, to Windham County. We've been reviewing the case law on this. We'd be happy to share all of that. We can share a bill that's going to be introduced this session related to encampments. So to give us time to be able to provide that tailored feedback to you, we ask that you table the motion. We'd also be happy to engage in dialogue, do a presentation at a later select board meeting. And we thank you for considering this request.
Thank you. Who's next?
Abby.
Abby.
Thanks. This is Abby Manukin, Town Meeting Rep, District 8. I wanted to thank Isaac for putting this on the agenda this evening. I really appreciate having more of an opportunity to talk about this as a community. I also appreciate Caitlin and Lisa Marie so much for all of their work and for agreeing to come do more unpaid labor here on a weeknight evening by presenting to the select board. I also want to thank the speaker from the ACLU who just spoke, and I really hope that the town will take her up on that offer to have the ACLU review anything before decisions are made. I feel I very strongly support having specific legal areas on public land where people can camp and have designated encampments that people can use safely and until ideally there's access to more affordable housing. But without that, it feels similar to the issue with if we don't have public restrooms, where are people going to go? We need to offer these solutions. So I hope that the board will really take this seriously. And instead of just saying no to solutions that are being presented, will really consider the options and act with compassion and intelligence and empathy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Robert.
Robert.
Hello, Robert Ozer, Brattleboro. And as we were talking here, I remembered that in May of 2024, I helped with a cleanup at the cemetery.
Trouble.
Oh, are we not?
See the speaker by either or.
Is that any better?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. So Robert Ozer, Brattleboro. While folks were talking, I recalled that in May of 2024, I had participated in the cleanup at a cemetery in town, and the Brat team was available during that cleanup, and there was a lot of stuff that needed to be removed from a ledge in the back of the cemetery. But there were 2 tents which were in fairly good condition, and we were admonished as we were doing this to leave those tents alone. Don't go into them, don't do anything with them. And so apparently there's been some policy change between May of 2024 and the time when the article hit the Commons about the dismantlement of encampments. And so the issue today is to look at a presentation about that, but it appears that that's already been done to some extent. I read some of the backup material, so I'll try to do this very quickly. Page 39 in the backup does say that civil rights guidance from organizations such as ACLU is fully aligned with this guidance. And Jessica Radford from the ACLU kind of stole my point here, because I was going to ask what the verification of that was. And it seems like that should be a work in progress. And maybe we need to look at that a little bit more closely. So that motion to table might be something that's quite relevant. Page 40 says both town staff and outreach workers are engaged to offer services, shelter connections, and support. Now, I guess I'm going to steal Veronica's question, because if the shelter is full and Groundworks has any more capacity, the winter shelter is either on a day that's closed or they're at capacity. Where can I go? Where can you go? And we apparently have no answer to that. Also on page 40, says notices are posted giving individuals sufficient time to gather belongings and relocate. And my question is, what is sufficient time? It doesn't seem to be defined in the procedure. And then also on page 40, whenever possible, personal belongings are identified and stored to minimize an already stressful experience. I think the whenever possible goes to whoever makes the decision that those items are not worthy of being stored. So let me go back now and could you repeat where I was before I stopped? Whenever possible, personal belongings are identified and stored to minimize an already stressful experience. And so the question is, where does that, does experience back this up? Could the process be clearer and more precise as to whenever possible means, and that it's not just judgmental? I think that ends it. Thank you very much.
Seth, who's next?
And then Cecil.
Okay.
Robin Morgan, District 8. I really appreciated the presentation tonight, and I want to express gratitude to Caitlin and Lisa Marie and to Jessica, the ACLU rep, who is also attending this meeting, for sharing their experience. I also want to appreciate the select board for having this conversation, because I know that this has been a contentious issue for years, and I'm really appreciating what I see in the select board comments of openness to collaboration to solve this issue and make things better, not come at this in a oppositional way. And I'm really hoping that folks will also use the ACLU as a collaborator. It certainly would be a costly experience for us to move forward with a plan that ended up resulting in legal action. So I also appreciated that so many of the specific needs around folks who are living unsheltered have been discussed, and that even if you decide to table this motion and talk about it more with legal counsel and ACLU support, that those problems don't have to be tabled. We can start working on those straight away. I know that the Select Board has been willing to take swift and dramatic action around this issue in past meetings, and I hope that we'll be equally urgent about solving some of these unmet needs for our neighbors who are living unsheltered this winter. Thank you.
Seth?
Cecil?
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. I'm somebody that works in Brattleboro and has been part of, my name is Cecil, and I'm calling in from Brattleboro. And a point that I would like to make, sort of in tandem with everyone else, is that I think it's within the town's best interest to take up the offer presented by the Vermont ACLU. I really think that having the broadest perspective possible will allow us as a community to really develop a sustainable plan. And the more feedback and input that we can get from not just our community members, but other communities in the state, even throughout New England, I think that would be really valuable. I also just want to make a note, as somebody that has been a service provider and currently is a service provider in the area, that a concern that I've had is having all of the supports available to those that are unhoused be focused in the center of town. I hope that going forward, we can think about folks in West Brattleboro and near the hotel, like the Quality Inn, who, may not be able to access the same level of resources, because all the people that are unhoused in our town matter. And I encourage us as a town to think more about outreach support services to help meet people where they're at. And I think having an increase in outreach services to areas where there could be potential encampments, it would allow for there to be more oversight, more collaboration, and more direct support and relationships built between our unhoused community members and our housed and service provider community members. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Laura?
My name is Laura Chapman. I'm a resident and felt moved to speak because decisions made in Brattleboro deeply affect people within the town, but also beyond the town borders. And I want to thank everybody who spoke here. It was far more productive than I had anticipated it would be. I thank the Select Board and town staff and community partners for the difficult work you do. I've been a part of this work and I know how hard it is. Please know that even when I disagree with you, I respect the effort and care many of you bring to this work. For transparency, I volunteer on the Groundworks board, and I'm a former staff member and have lived experience. For clarity, I'm not speaking for that board or any organization. I'm speaking for myself and to advocate for others. And I, much like many of you probably are, am feeling pretty exhausted right now. Lockers, bathrooms, trash, receptacles, sharps disposal, and safe camping space have been discussed for so many years within these communities. I worked for Groundworks during the years when the town did have a camping area they allowed. It was not a great site. There were real reasons to close it. It was down a steep hill and in a flood zone. But there were also strong reasons to find a safer and more humane location instead of eliminating the space altogether. When people have access to shared space, bathrooms, trash disposal, and safe places to be, public health improves, emergency calls decrease, or can also be brought to one space. And community spaces function better for everyone. That does not mean it would look perfect. And yes, your fears are definitely warranted to some degree. There are scary elements of taking a leap like that, but it's also better than having people scattered without access to bathrooms or trash disposal. I'm also trying to understand something I've heard in this meeting, and I've heard from others that the current hotel program has state-approved hotels in Brattleboro that are not full at this time and could take more people, yet individuals are being sent out of town away from their supports. Keeping people connected to their local services, healthcare, and community relationships improves safety and long-term outcomes for everyone. And I'm interested to know if the town has a role in limiting local hotel placements and if those limits can be adjusted. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's for the comments. Let me thank Lisa Marie and Caitlin for your presentation, and then we'll hear from Becky Best at Groundworks. Is she here? And Becky, you can come to the table if you'd like.
Libby too.
And I see Libby Bennett as well.
To be clear, we thought we were all going to all three presenters were going to be at the table at once. Would it be helpful if Chuck just joined us
yes,
now
it would.
to save
If
time?
that's okay with you. That's your option.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay, so we're also asking Assistant, I'm sorry?
Madam Chair, is it okay if I invite Superintendent Chico?
Of course. So we have Becky Best, Assistant Chief Chuck here, and we have Highway Superintendent Darren Pacheco. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. However you want to present, you're welcome to.
I guess we'll let you start first, and
Okay.
then we'll kind of fill in.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the invite for tonight. I want to start off and apologize for my voice. It has been decreasing over the day, so I will ask that you bear with me. And so I will be mostly reading from here due to this happening. So my name is Becky Best. I am the Director of Shelter at Groundworks Collaborative. I oversee the drop-in center at 54 South Main Street, our coordinated entry program, and our street outreach team. As we continue to uphold our policies around health and safety in our space, this has led to an increased need amongst those who remain unsheltered when day or overnight services may no longer be an option for them. The vital partnerships that we are and have continued to develop with Brattleboro Police Department, Brattleboro Fire and EMS, and the Department of Public Works assist with these challenges for us. These collaborations have been essential, not only in serving our unsheltered neighbors, but in strengthening our community as a whole. Our team meets twice weekly at 7:30 a.m. with town partners to compassionately walk through encampments and areas where people may be sheltering. This collaboration has proven instrumental for several reasons. First, it enables us to have critical wellness checks. Especially during this adverse weather, we can ensure that those staying outside are medically stable, assess their immediate needs, and arrange emergency transport when necessary. Second, it provides real-time support and connection, a cornerstone of our work that allows us to offer basic needs assistance and connect individuals with services in the moment. We can confidently say that we're proud of these collaborative efforts. I have been consistently impressed by the trauma-informed approach Brat PD officers bring to each encounter and the care everyone takes with people's belongings. We have not witnessed tent slashing or careless disposal of personal items. Instead, we have observed great care in preserving what can be saved while responsibly removing substantial amounts of trash, debris, and waste. I myself maintain regular communication with DPW, multiple BRAT PD officers, including Assistant Chief Jeremy Evans and our Assistant Fire Chief Chuck Keir. all of whom prioritize a proactive, connection-first approach before making any site decisions. Individuals receive fair warning, and we collaborate to determine what support and resources we can provide immediately. Additionally, our partnership with the BRAT team and Project Care, combined with many, many outreach visits, ultimately has saved lives. Groundworks Collaborative is deeply grateful for the town of Brattleboro's commitment to this thoughtful, dignity-centered approach. This collaborative model represents what's possible when human service organizations and municipal departments work together with shared values of compassion as well as accountability. We look forward to continuing and strengthening these relationships as we work together to better serve our community members while creating safer, healthier outcomes.
Thank you. Chuck?
I've prepared a presentation for tonight. There's a lot of information that I want to share. I'm very appreciative for this conversation, both from the select board perspective and from our community perspective. I know there's a great deal amount of questions around this issue. This is a very, very polarizing issue, and that I recognize that from community members that are suffering and going through unhoused conditions to community members that are looking for this issue to be addressed. And that middle ground is where the town falls, and we have an obligation to make sure that both those ends of the community are represented fairly and protected to have a level sense of a safe environment to be, and that's from both sides. And it's so as we kind of go through this presentation, I would ask that you recognize that as well from the public viewpoint as well. I will share some pictures in here. Some of these pictures are going to be uncomfortable for some people, and for that I apologize. But I do think it's really important that you understand what the town staff is doing, what our community members, what conditions our community members are facing when they're out there and they're living in an in-a-house situation. So for that, I apologize about that. I did try to remove many of the faces that you'll see. Outside of Tom's staff, you're going to see some of those. But to provide privacy for those folks that are going through these situations. So first, we're going to cover a lot of information. A lot of the questions that people asked earlier today, I almost thought to myself, boy, I wish we could start sooner, because I think we would have answered many of the questions the public has about why we do certain things or how certain things are performed. I'm going to cover my role as a town health officer, why that's really important, and then our ordinances around all of this topic. We have a lot of ordinances that are well established, that date back years and years. Some are new, some are not. But all of them, whether they're the cemetery ordinance or the nuisance ordinance, or there's a lot of them. We're going to cite them in there. But they all really cover in detail around these issues. I'm also going to cover the encampment approachment. About 3.5 years ago, we came up with an encampment approachment, something that we could fairly evaluate and determine whether or not an encampment was dangerous to those people, dangerous to the environment, dangerous to other community members, and how we could properly get services to those people. So we'll cover all of that. I'm now going to turn it over a little bit to Superintendent Pacheco. He's going to cover a little bit of what Becky talked about, and that is the downtown cleanup stuff. And that does fall a little bit within our encampment process as well, and we'll cover that and how that works. But then, and lastly, we'll cover the safety measures that we have for our staff. This particular picture is something that I'm very proud of. These are a lot of the staff members that we have that are out there every Monday and Friday dealing with all sorts of things. And just like many people described here today, this is not a popular thing that we are out there doing, but it is a responsibility and an obligation that we have to our community to make sure that our parks, our places, our downtown, and our areas of recreation are safe for the general public. Just kidding. I'm close to reading that. The town of Brattleboro, we have a legal and public health obligation to address conditions on public property that pose a risk to the health and safety. Unmanaged encampments become very, very difficult, and they become immediate hazards for those people around them. Not only for the people, it's really important that when we're discussing this particular topic, it is not just a dangerous atmosphere for the people that are living there, but those people that will come in contact. People will use encampment areas all over town. This happens to be a stairwell of the parking garage, oftentimes used as overnight encampment areas. And you can see this is one night of an encampment area where waste and refuse is pretty scattered throughout. We can't have members of the public going through these unsafe conditions. This approach is not about criminalization. This is not about putting somebody in a worse spot than they already are. We recognize that. And that's where our collaboration with Groundworks, with HCRS, with all of the agencies that we have in our community are so vital to the success of this. There is no win for somebody from the town to put somebody in a worse position at the end of the day than when they started. That's not a win for us. But our goal is to balance that compassion with responsibility. And so while we do recognize that removing an encampment for somebody is extremely difficult for them, because that is the one spot that they have for that moment, we also have that responsibility to protect our cemeteries, to make sure that they are not being destroyed, or protect our downtown, or protect our parks, so that children and community members can use those parks in the manner that they were designed. So one of the things that's really important with this is that I serve as the town health officer. You guys are the Board of Health, and I think that sometimes needs to be reminded. My authority rests with you guys. My authority, I'm giving through state statute the authority to investigate public health concerns at all different levels. So, my job as a town health officer is to investigate the backed up septic, to rat infestations, to hypodermic needles in public spaces. All of that falls within that purview of my role as a town health officer. When I start to do things that make you guys uncomfortable, it is of your authority to say, please don't do that. But outside of that, through state statute, I do have those obligations to do that. This is just outlining that, and part of how we've come up to where we're at now in my role within the town. That's why you see so often the fire truck showing up to these encampments and to the downtown. Is I'm not necessarily there as the fire department. My role is the assistant fire chief, but is also the town health officer. And so when I show up with my fire truck, I'm actually showing up as the town health officer in these particular situations. Some of the ordinances that I already began to talk about. Chapter 1, General Provisions. Chapter 7, Solid Waste. Chapter 8, Health and Sanitation, Fire Safety. Chapter 13, Offensive Malicious Provisions. This is probably one of the more significant ones. I recognize that I did put Chapter 13 in the backup materials. I have extra copies here. I know some people have limited access to being able to gain that view from the backup materials, so there are hard copies here for people that would like them. And Chapter 13 very specifically outlines no camping on public property, defines what that camping is, and that it is held by state statute. You know, we have Vermont law that protects that as well. Chapter 14, Streets and Sidewalks. Chapter 19 cemeteries. You know, cemeteries, the majority of the cemeteries that we have in town are owned by the town of Brattleboro. And so we have ordinances to protect them, to protect our people that are buried there. This is our encampment approachment policy. Again, I also recognize that this is really, really small, and I'm going to go over this in detail. But I brought many hard copies for anybody that would like it. I'm happy to pass those around, but they also can be found in the backup material. And this is the encampment approachment policy that we wrote about 3 years ago to start to identify some of these issues within our organization. And I'm going to go into this in a little bit more detail. Some of our goals, and it's very clearly written in our policy, but some of our goals for doing encampment cleanups is the number one thing is people experiencing homelessness are connected with social services. Again, I heard Lisa Marie discuss it earlier today. We want to end the circle if at all possible. And I know this is not a perfect situation, but our first and number one goal is to get those people connected with some level of social service, if at all possible. The way we do that is to keep our connections with people like Groundworks and other organizations that have those resources that we just don't have. At times with the town of Brattleboro, we have, I show up in my truck and that's an authoritative presence. I recognize that's not always somebody in that particular situation what they need to see or the person that they want to be listening to at that moment. That's where those other connections come in, and that's where those differences can be made. I appreciate what Becky said, because what I can say over the course of this last couple of years is a lot of lives have been touched and saved because of those connections that we've made through these encampment checks. Part of it is making sure that we have access to public property and our infrastructure is not impeded. Crime and disorder is reduced when we have known drug activity happening in different areas, and I'm going to show you examples of some of the things that we have going on. We can reduce that by removing these encampments. Crews are safely able to access these critical areas. So there may be an encampment, but if it's in a location that emergency service crews cannot get to because it's down steep embankments or it's near rivers, then those are other areas of concern. And we need to make sure not only are the people that are living in these encampments okay, but when a medical emergency comes in or a fire, because we've had a lot of fires in encampments, that our emergency crews can address it, law enforcement can address these areas. We need to protect our waterways. Our waterways are really important, and they're a vital part to what creates our downtown safe and vibrant. Visitors to the public property, to those areas, they also need to feel welcome. So these are all the guiding goals, and I won't read them in verbatim, but you guys can see them there. So inside the encampment, there's essentially 5 different things that we look for. So in our encampment approachment assessment, I look for signs of significant wastewater, sewage, and refuse. If that takes place, it'll start to establish a level of priority or a zone. And I'll go over those zones here in a second. And that will determine the need for the immediate removal of an encampment or a posting of an encampment, and that time frame that somebody had mentioned, a public member had just discussed, what is that time frame for the removal and what makes that determination. But signs of outside burning in propane tanks, flammable materials, inadequate water drainage, flooding, or steep, inaccessible terrain, evidence of substance use related to hazardous materials, or hazardous materials, sorry, and other hazards that pose immediate danger to life and health. Those are the 5 areas that we look for. Next slide. Once I make that determination that an encampment is going to be removed, each encampment is posted. There's only one time that we do not provide a pink notice such as that you see here, and that is when we cover a Zone 1 type of encampment. But from Zone 2 through Zone 4, we provide notice. Now that is, I'm going to show you another slide, but that's typically a 24 to 72 hour notice that we provide the encampment that you can't be here, this is town property, please remove all your belongings. We give a time and date for that person to remove it. And then I will say that in the where it says any items not discarded may be retrieved by calling Charles Keir, Town Health Officer. Previously, up to about a month ago, I would write that in Sharpie, my name and phone number. And that's where people can go to find their belongings should they be removed. And what I will say is that I do take this very seriously. When we remove personal property from encampments, we do take that very seriously. That number that you see there, that's to the fire station. If there's belongings that I know that people are looking for and I've had a connection with that person, typically the on-duty shift will make some sort of connection, or that will go to my voicemail. Once you enter into my voicemail at the fire station, it will give you my personal cell phone, or my business cell phone, I should say, and I carry that with me all the time. So I'm very easily accessed, and that location of where your stuff is stored is always at Department of Public Works. But because that could happen on a Sunday, that could happen at 10 p.m., that could happen on a random Wednesday, it's easier for me to take that phone call and then reach out to people like Mr. Pacheco or Director Tyler or somebody to arrange for those pickups. And so when we first make an approach to an encampment, the first is to touch base and establish some level of relationship with that person. From there, try to get services to that person if at all possible. And then from there, if they're not willing to comply with the removal of an encampment, then it's posted. Typically, that is when the ideal situation is that I can do that in a face-to-face nature. If that encampment, if there's nobody there, it's really hard for me to make those things, and that's when these postings get put in place. So personal belongings, as I said, go to Public Works. Thank you. Items.
Can't read that.
Definitely not. Items are held for 14 days. That's within our encampment approachment assessment policy, and we do a really good job of that. What I will say is that the town has no obligation in our town ordinances to hold on to personal belongings. Again, we agree that we do not want to just continue this revolving circle and making life more difficult for people that are going through a homeless situation. So removing everything that they have is not our goal. Our goal is to remove those items that of value. What I would say is that I am not going to put the jeopardy of town staff at risk for personal belongings. And you're going to see some of the reasons why our staff become highly exposed to different communicable diseases and other things when we start talking about removing personal belongings specifically from inside tents. Am I missing anything there? Sure.
I want to touch base. So, as AC has said, Chuck, our assistant chief here, has said, personal belongings are always stored at Public Works. They are actually stored in a safe location and a dry location. They're stored in a shed here. The minute that they're brought to Public Works, they are tagged. What I mean by tagged, it's location, date, and time that it was there. That makes sure that they're not disposed of prior to the 14 days ending. And so they are all, and there is times when there is things that stay longer than 14 days. I personally have helped individuals grab some belongings from Public Works, sometimes at 7 o'clock at night. And that's been some work with Brat PD and things. And I know there's challenges and confusion, but the hope is going into FY27, we have plans to make a better process for that hopefully will clear out some of the confusion that folks have. And so, yes, we understand how important it is for everyone to retrieve their belongings, and we're working on that. And hopefully next summer we'll have a better process, but can say that the process we have now is pretty fair. So that's all I have to say for the personal belongings.
So this is the hot button topic. Anytime we talk to people about encampments, it typically comes around a couple of different issues. It comes around to their personal belongings and the removal of tents. Tents are expensive and they're very hard to come across again. We hear from all walks here. But the town of Brattleboro, again, has no obligation to store hazardous material. Items such as shopping carts, wooden structures, pallets are not considered personal property. The town will make a reasonable faith effort to determine which items are stored and what items are disposed of. Determination of personal belongings often puts Brattleboro staff at the highest risk for exposure. Now, I show these particular slides because the first one, obviously, the very top slide, sorting out personal belongings through rotting waste material saturated with urine and feces is not a safe option for our staff, and I will not put our staff in a position where they're exposed to this level of risk. So you look at the bottom tent, it looks pretty empty. It's a fairly new tent, but what you'll note is that tent is full of hypodermic needles. And some would even say that, well, you could go in there and remove those hypodermic needles. If you look at the red splots on the green tent, this is a tent, it's an example of a tent that is commonly used for a drug shoot-up tent, where member community will purchase their drug paraphernalia and they'll use this tent. So this tent is saturated with blood and other human waste. And to remove the needles, the safest option for a tent like this, as with others, is to encompass the tent, to enclose the tent as one unit and throw the tent in the trash without creating any exposure to our staff. This is another just examples of the common tent that we come across. Oftentimes full of hypodermic needles, other material, and sorting through, these are 4 different tents, the insides of 4 different tents. So sorting through those contents is very, very difficult. And that's where the exposure to our people happen. And so we try to prevent that as all possible. Both myself and Mr. Superintendent Pacheco will enter a tent, sort through those materials as best we can to find items that are personal belongings that are not destroyed or saturated and or covered in hypodermic needles or whatever. But we do look for those things. And those are the items that are pulled from the tents, tagged, as Superintendent Pacheco said, and held for later on. Most of the time, a tent is not saved. I will be very open about that. This is the nature that most tents and belongings are found. When the tent is clean, there are times that a tent can be saved, and we do take that time to remove that tent in a manner that doesn't destroy it. And oftentimes, I will say, when the tent is pulled from a site like this, full of this, yes, it does tear. At no point has any of our staff ever slashed or purposely destroyed a tent to just destroy it. That is not the behavior that is acceptable from town staff. So this is just as you read in more detail the encampment assessment. We have 4 zones, and I gave you those 5 different things that we look for, and that determines the priority for each zone and the level of danger necessarily that it poses to or risk to the public or to that person. Zone 1 is the worst zone that we label as, and that's posted for immediate removal. That is such a bad situation that is immediately dangerous to life and health. It is just not appropriate for being there. Then we have all the way down to Zone 4. Zone 4 oftentimes is our downtown cleanup, much similar to that stairwell that we showed in one of the first slides, or those areas that a person will use for the night, leave for the day, they may come back, sleep there on some cardboard, come back, those type of things. And we're going to go over each one, but you'll notice the action, the immediate removal, 24 to 48 hours, monitor and coordinate. You know, a Zone 3 is a good one that, well, this is not a great situation. It only has one concern. Maybe there's drug use. Maybe there's inappropriate use of waste, that type of thing. But the encampment is so large that it just takes time to coordinate for that removal. And we'll go over to what that looks like here in a second. So this is an example of Zone 1. These are the ones that most people have the largest concern about. These are very rare. We do not oftentimes come across one that is a Zone 1 encampment where it's immediately removed. This particular encampment that you see here, this is a map. The red dot represents the encampment. It is 100 feet from where we're sitting right now. This encampment was full of hypodermic needles. It was full of waste. It was right behind the library where children were playing. This is not an example of an encampment that we are going to tolerate for the safety in the community. This one was removed on November 26, 2025, right behind Memorial Library, and active legal drugs, sewage waste. It was steep slope. We probably remove less than 5 a year classify as Zone 1. So these are very rare, because even when we come across an encampment that is really bad, I don't want to just remove all of those things to have somebody come back to that location at 10 o'clock at night only to be even a worse spot. I would rather coordinate with Becky to have those services begin to be put in place so that person is aware of what's going on. And so there are a lot of times, again, we're talking about both sides of the people that are concerned for the immediate removal and the people that do not want the removal. You know, we get a lot of complaints. Well, you know this encampment's there. You're not removing it. Why aren't you removing it? Well, if we go to the next slide, those are encampments that typically are Zone 2. So there's a lot of reasons for not that immediate removal. And oftentimes that's because we want to try to offer as much social service as we possibly can. But there are bad enough, or the situation is dangerous enough, that it poses a risk to the public. The middle picture is right behind the New England Youth Theater. I take a great deal of pride in this particular encampment and the removal, because it was extremely, extremely difficult to get to. Very grateful to our Groundworks crew, because the only way to access this, that you can't see is the fence behind the New England Youth Theater, is to walk up the river. And this was in the drought of our summer. There was a pregnant female that was living in there that refused any communication with public officials. So they would not speak to me or law enforcement. But Becky was able to get her services, get her help, and get her out of that situation. So that's just one that I'm fairly proud of over the course of this summer. The one on the left, horrible picture. I know it's small, but you can't see all the burn areas around there. There's significant fires. Very clean encampment, fairly well kept. But the entire encampment area was burned multiple times at multiple points. So very dangerous. And then obviously the one on the far right picture, hypodermic needles littering the ground, the area needs to be removed and cleaned up. So typically these Zone 2 encampments fall on town property, and that's the normal process. Zone 3. Zone 3 is a little bit more challenging. Zone 3 has typically two points of concern, sometimes one. And these typically fall on private property. So I hear a lot of people say, and I think my memo may even been a little bit confusing, but if somebody has permission to be on private property from the property owner, then there's some other ordinances that they need to follow, and then the landowner must abide to. But in general, that's okay. People have a right to camp. However, what we find oftentimes, especially with private property, is that property owners aren't aware that these encampments are taking place on their property. And they oftentimes take a lot of legwork. For example, there's an encampment that we're aware of on the north end of town. This is a very large encampment, and yes, it's been there a very, very long time. There are very minimal risks to this encampment. There is no, we commonly get out there for outreach services. Groundworks is out there oftentimes. There's a number of different agencies within our community that are out there regularly to check the welfare and assist these community members as needed. However, the land is owned by large corporations, and getting a hold of the person that's in charge of land use inside that organization is difficult. It takes time, and I haven't been able to successfully get a hold of those organizations yet to determine whether or not they are allowing this on their land. According to the people that are encamping on this property, they have permission to be there. So there's not significant hazards. It's a well-functioning atmosphere up there. It's not horrible. And then next slide. So, and this is just some more examples of Zone 3 encampments. You see the upper left picture. That's an encampment that is on a floodplain right along the Connecticut River. It takes coordination with the New England Railroad. And right now it's completely inaccessible through the snow and through means of removal. So the coordination that it takes to clean that encampment and remove it is very, very time consuming. Other ones that are fall under Zone 3, the center tent looks like a great tent, and there's no real issues except for the picture's cut off a little bit, but you can see some beer cans and stuff like that. Well, is that major? No, but it's still an encampment that has illegal activity going on, and it's on private property. The fourth one, the picture all the way to the right, this is an encampment that's well established within our community. Has chickens. It's a working environment, but it still does not have permission from the landowner to be on that property, and therefore it was removed. And then Zone 4 is other areas of concern that don't typically, those are the overnight encampments. Those are the ones that have they oftentimes have a lot of hypodermics or minor things going on there that just need to be cleaned up. And those are oftentimes handled in our downtown cleanup. And for this part, as I said earlier, a large part, so much of the effort and the manpower that goes into this is organized and done by Department of Public Works. So I'm going to turn over this downtown stuff to Superintendent Pacheco.
Thank you. So about 2 years, the town worked on coming up with a plan of how we were going to address, and sorry, Seth, you can go to the next slide, which is really just a bunch of words, but on how we were going to address some of these areas that had come up at concerns that both select board meetings and just emails to us. And so this really all started kind of during COVID-19 and with the ending of the emergency motel program. The main focus of this, and you can go to the next slide, which actually is something. The main focus of this downtown cleanup is really just to clean up debris, pick up any hazards like sharps, and the greatest one is, as both of them have spoke about, is getting services to these individuals that are out there. We've become me, who's new to this, has now on a first name basis with some of these individuals. Just this morning, down there talking with them, they know me, giving them donuts, conversation. It's great because they're now open enough to come up to me and have those conversations. But we also at the same time have an obligation to make sure that our public spaces are clean and open to everyone to use. And so these cleanups originally were 3 days a week and really have made a difference. And so we now have them twice a week, Monday and Friday. They start at 7:30. They're a collaboration with the health officer, Brattleboro Police Department, DPW, and usually Groundworks is with us as well. We focus on the downtown district when that means any public space, parking lot, park, walk path, or an area that I actually see when I do a routine every morning at 5:30. I come to downtown Brattleboro. I'm making a trip through and seeing if there's any areas of concern. And so every Monday and Friday, we really take our time to go around. Recently in the wintertime, especially with these cold mornings, it's actually more transitioned to a checking in. We know these individuals are trying to stay warm, and we've actually been able to get medical attention to some that need it, and we're the first ones there. I mean, there's not a lot of people up at 6:30, 7:30 in the morning, and so really that's been the best part for me, is really getting a close connection with some of these folks and helping them when we can. Next, yeah.
Can I just talk on this slide?
Yeah.
This slide is really another slide that's really important to me too, in reference to the downtown cleanup stuff and the connections that we made. This particular, for many, you drive by this particular photo and see a pile of rags or debris in the corner of a business. There's a human being underneath that pile of rags and cloth. It is negative 10 degrees outside. So when we talk about doing our downtown cleanup and some of the things that Superintendent Pacheco just discussed, it's also, we are truly checking on our community members and making sure that they are okay.
Next slide. And so just like they have both said as well, we've worked with nonprofit organizations and other organizations that help with this work that we've been doing. We've worked with Groundworks. We've done, the AIDS Project has come and helped pick up sharps with us on some of these morning cleanups. Vermont Agency, VTrans has been there. And so we're collaborating on all elements here to try to help this difficult situation and, be fair to one side of the room and also to the other. So the other thing we do is bi-weekly meetings every Wednesday. A group of administrative folks for the town meet via Zoom. We have conversations about areas or concerns we have, folks that we are trying to connect with services, and that's also the same time as when, and if an encampment has come up to AC during the week, that's when we have discussion about how we're going to tackle those steps moving forward, and that's when we create a plan. And the same group that does the morning cleanups Monday and Friday, we normally will do an encampment cleanup directly after a downtown cleanup, either Monday or Friday, or address it immediately if it needs to be during the week. Next slide. One of the biggest things AC has said, same with myself, is this isn't enjoyable for any of us to go do. We don't get enjoyment in doing this, but we know how important it is. The employees themselves are putting themselves at risk in going in some of these areas, climbing down embankments to clean up the town, really. And so really we make sure that staff that do this, first of all, it's not mandatory. We have conversations with our staff that do it, and we make sure that they know what they're getting, what the type of work is, and that what they'll be putting themselves at risk of. And if they do not feel comfortable doing it, we're okay with that. And so the folks that do the work, we make sure they have the proper training and proper PPE and really understand protocols and our policies at the town when they do this work. But these guys come in here with a smile on their face, walking into these encampments, being polite to the individuals that are there, moving their personal belongings for them to areas that they need, doing it with a smile on their face, and at the same time, on the other hand, picking up 200 to 300 needles and stuff that's covered in feces. And so employee safety and dedication is one of the biggest things for us folks here, and I personally applaud the crew that goes out there every day. And I know it's getting late, so we want to wrap this up. I'm sure there's some questions, so thank you for listening to our presentation, and I'm sure we'll take questions at this time.
Thank you, the three of you, very much. Let's start with the select board. Isaac, do you have questions?
Gosh, it just is so appreciative of the information that you all have shared and of the balancing of so many needs, and appreciate your work that you do for town health and safety and cleanliness. And I was also pleased to see to hear that you've made some tweaks, like printing the phone number on those slips, and hearing about more process improvements to come. And I'd be interested if you are prepared to talk at all about what those improvements are that you have in mind, or what you want to work on. I'd be interested, but if it's also, I don't want to put you on the spot if you're still working through that internally.
I mean, every time we have our biweekly meetings with the administration, we're looking at how we can do better. The one I can personally speak to is personal belongings. It's been brought up by folks, by whoever, that the process of collecting personal belongings has been challenging. And so we're actually looking at, some have said that it's challenging for us to separate belongings from certain tent areas. And so we're trying to find a process where it can all be stored in an area that won't get thrown away immediately. Like if it's got safety concerns, needles, And so we're trying to find a way that it can all just go to an area, everything that's picked up, stayed in an area for 14 days. If an individual stuff has been taken, they would have to coordinate still with the health officer, Public Works. But we're trying to store everything there and not throw anything away, and give someone the opportunity to come and find what they need. Because right now we're trying to separate. That's the most difficult part of this process, is trying to separate things that are covered in needles and feces. And so if we can just take everything, put it in one location, store everything from that site for 14 days, and then if an individual is looking for their stuff, it's all in this one location, in this one covered area. That's hopefully, do you understand what I'm saying there?
Do.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you. I imagine that in this process, you'll have conversations with, well, you're talking with Groundworks all the time, or maybe 69A folks, just to be able to get that feedback on the plans, and when you try things out, how it's working for folks. I'm glad to hear about the relationship building that y'all are doing as well with folks on the street. No, thank you.
Peter, do you have any comments?
Not this time.
Oscar?
Sure, thank you. Second, great presentation. Thank you guys. That was really helpful, and I think even just hearing it spelled out like that will be helpful and comforting to a lot of people. So I really appreciate that. I mean, we're in a tough spot. Government is really all about the letter of the law in a lot of ways, and I think from what you've said and conversations we've had, we all get how disruptive it is for people, and yet, you know, if we get a complaint or if there's a safety risk, we have things that we have to do. And I have to say, my feeling is that you guys are handling that balance about as well as you can. So I'm really appreciative of that. The one thing I'll say sort of unofficially, knowing that it can't ever really be turned into a policy, is that my hope would be that if there's a Zone 3 encampment on public property and nobody's complained, that we wouldn't go out of our way to interact with that encampment, because we know that when people are moved from one encampment, they're just going to go somewhere else. So just a personal thought that I'm speaking aloud. And then I think the real outlet for this stuff, was what we talked about before, is that there's no solution. If there's no encampment on public land that's really legal, and there's also nowhere for people to go. So what we've talked about tonight, thinking about those solutions for storage and bathrooms and camping, and they're all difficult. Some are more difficult than others, but I think we should keep talking about that stuff. And then as far as the policy goes, I have no problems with it. It's already the unofficial, or it is already the policy of the town. Nobody's made a motion yet, so there's nothing to table. But personally, my feeling is I'd like to, reread it, chew on it, come back to it. I don't think there's any urgency to codify it, and I'm interested in what, now that this has been a public conversation, members of the public will say, ACLU, et cetera. So my mild feeling is stick a pin in it, think about it, and come back to it. Thank you.
Shall I make the motion so we can have that conversation? All right, I will like the motion that we formally adopt the town's encampment response approach as presented by the town health officer as official town policy.
I'd like to speak, not to the motion, but in general. You want to speak first? Go for it.
Pardon me?
Can I then speak
Of course.
to the motion?
Let Peter speak to the motion, and then you can have general comments, as will I.
Sounds good.
I guess there's sort of two of me sitting up here, right? There's the person that got elected to make town policy and make decisions that were good for the town, for the betterment of the town, that keep the town safe, that keep the town secure, that find revenue for the town, right? And that's sort of my job here as I sit on this side of the table. When I'm on that side of the table, more in the private sector where I feel things move a lot quicker, I am more concerned about where people get to store their stuff if they have no place to store their stuff. I am more concerned that our DPW and our fire department and our EMS have to rouse people up on a night that is -10 to quite possibly save their lives and get them to a better situation. I don't pretend to understand every situation that is out there. I am saddened by it. I wish I had the solution. I've spent many years just doing the things that I could do to help improve and hold up the work that the true nonprofits in this area do each and every day with feeding, housing, homelessness, and trying to get people the services that they need so that they can better their lives. So when I make a motion like this, I believe it's the right thing for the town. And if I'm sitting on that side of the table, I too believe it's the right thing for the town. But if I'm on that side of the table, I really do want to work as part of a community to help resolve these problems. I don't know that this board can resolve these problems. This board maybe can help and permission a few things that might make it easier to solve a problem, but I don't think it's, as a municipality, our business to solve them. I think it is in our best interest to help with the process. I just don't know how we solve them. So when I make this motion, like I say, I make it as a select board member that is looking to keep the town on the steady, on the straight and narrow. But I also make it as a citizen that is looking for answers and some resolve around a very difficult, highly charged situation that seems to be getting worse by the day. And I am as deeply frustrated by it as I can. And, you know, I'm also, if I can go off script a little bit here, the whole 69A thing to me was misguided good in that I think it strived to be this living room project, but just never hit the mark. So I just want to say that as well, that I think that more services are needed, but I don't think as a select board member, it is my responsibility to provide those services. But as a citizen, maybe it is.
Thank you, Peter. Amanda?
Oh, thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for your flexibility, your out-of-the-box thinking, your resilience, and your perseverance, because the work that you're doing is really, really challenging. It's very emotionally stirring. So hopefully I don't cry. This is a very concrete question. Are there resources for a municipality to apply for via grants to help financially support the work that you're doing to address, not just address homelessness in the community as a social service agency, but as a municipality? So this is a really narrow way of thinking, but like fiscal responsibility wise, it's like cost. I think cost, which is probably lame, but this all costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of human time. It costs a lot of emotional time, but it also, how do we continue to finance all of the work that's going into this project? And are there state resources? Are there other resources that we can apply for support to continue the work in collaboration? But that. So there's that piece of it. The other thing is, in terms of voting on this motion, I heard loud and clear the ACLU statement, and it makes me very nervous. And so I am not ready to pass this at this point. If their advice is more workshopping, if that would be in our best interest as a town and protection of the town, then I'd say let's take a little time to not do it tonight. So that's my take.
All righty. I wanted to thank the three of you. What I heard was a well thought out policy of compassion and practicality and public health, and of a team that works together well, consistently, and the collaboration is really essential. And what I know from how our public safety team and One Brattleboro works is that it works because of the collaboration. And so I applaud all of you and all of One Brattleboro, really, and the Situation Table and Project Care and all the partners for putting your heads together to find practical solutions. And I see what what Brattleboro has to contend with, and what we have now, right now in the motel program, 78 rooms, 74 households, 99 adults, and 57 children. And then we have, how many people, Becky, at the shelter? About 40? And then we have Morningside being built. And we have the shelter at Winston Prouty. And we have the Beloved Shelter. Am I missing anything?
I think so.
Okay. So I really believe that Brattleboro is a compassionate town and working very hard to meet the needs with dignity, as you said, of all the homeless. And that includes the people in the encampments. And I heard every effort being made to address the needs of the people in the encampment with compassion and dignity. Now, there's public health issues. There's people at risk. There's staff time. But what is also getting to Amanda's question, are there grants? Let's keep in mind that we have asked our legislators to advocate on our behalf to the state, because the motel program is costing our town probably over $1 million of staff time. And the homeless in these encampments and on our street that you all address so admirably, that's your time. That's an expense that our taxpayers bear. And what we've said to the legislators over and over again is we need revenue sharing, because is this a municipal problem that we're dealing with? To a certain extent it is. But if you look at the big picture, as people have brought up this evening, this is the responsibility of the state of Vermont. And the fact that our community has, over the decades, moved from poor houses to the current system, it is a state responsibility. And it's my job that we've talked about in our retreat to continue to tell the state, to tell our legislators what our situation on the ground is, so that they can help us, help everyone. And when the legislators were here, they promised that they would advocate for state funding. And furthermore, they would advocate for state funding specifically to cleanups. So going forward, not only do I commend you for the policy that you've worked together to formulate, but I also want to go beyond that to find our more help for our little town. And I have no interest in changing the policy. I will say that at our retreat, at our select board retreat, we talked about this issue, and we talked about the state law, which is kind of peculiar, because it talks about, you can't camp on state property, and you can't camp on town property, but you can, with permission, camp on private property. So that says to me, and what we discussed in our retreat, is encouraging members of the public, if they feel strongly about addressing the situation, they can, and as you said, Chuck, they are, to a certain extent, doing that. So when people get up and they say, where can we go? That's your answer. I mean, the system that exists now is very compassionate and dignified and so forth, and I commend you all for it. And I have no intention of tabling this for some other time when we can talk about it all again, because this has been an extremely thorough discussion. And we have yet to hear from the public even more about this extremely thorough discussion. But then I think, we should come back and talk about whether we want to have this vote now. So is there a sign-up sheet for this round of presentations?
Madam Chair, could we have a little more discussion? I would prefer a little more discussion on the select board before public comment.
Okay.
Just so that we've all kind of provided statements, but I don't feel that we've actually had a public discussion about it. So I appreciate
Knock yourself out.
So circling back to the American Civil Liberties Union and it being a national problem that we're talking about, that's not exclusive to Vermont. I am not super familiar with how that organization works, but my hope is that maybe a collaboration could steer us towards resources that we could use to address a collaborative effort to deal with this, where we are right now. So, so just sort of some out-of-the-box thinking. I would like to not necessarily table the discussion, but say agree to move forward on the motion, approve the motion with tweaks, with a commitment to ongoing process, and with a commitment to collaborating with the person from the ACLU who addressed us, with our town, council, with input from the community, and our partners and our and our town staff to continue to work on it. So I think there's somewhere in the middle we can reach.
Let's ask John and then Bob.
Yeah, Amanda, one thing that really struck me with their presentation was how this whole program has continuous improvement built right into it, and these systematic meetings that they have to continuously make this a better program, and taking feedback through Groundworks, through community members and others to find ways to make it better and better. I think that's like inherent to their approach. So I really appreciate the offer from the ACLU and from Jenna Seymour and others if they want to help with this. I mean, I think we would love to have more people come help on the cleanups, do other things. I mean, I think that all can be incorporated continuously into this program, and I really am grateful to this team. I can't think of better people doing this very difficult work than we have right here with us tonight. So.
Thank you for speaking to that. That was really helpful.
Can we, Bob, can we ask if you'd like to comment on the legality of this program?
Sure. And I think the first thing I would note is if you adopt a policy, you can always amend that policy at any time. So it's a policy, it's not at this point an ordinance, so you're not going through the whole ordinance procedure. You're adopting a policy that in large part is in. The ACLU with regard to other cases that they've had against other cities or municipalities in Vermont, found those other cities or municipalities at fault because those cities or towns did not provide reasons, did not give an opportunity for outreach or removal, didn't provide for things such as the opportunity to retrieve personal property. So when we look at what the policy that has been suggested tonight and has been the policy being followed, the town of Brattleboro emphasizes, as is in the backup material, the notice, the property protection, the humane treatment. You're looking at outreach to the person. You've got welfare checks. You've got notice to them before enforcement there's a whole other level here of enforcement of criminal laws, let alone the town ordinances. And so with that, from my perspective, the policy, I'm quite comfortable that the town is already doing what the ACLU is suggesting. Now, might the ACLU have some additional suggestions? That's great. If they do, let's come back and amend the policy and go from there. But I think as far as the notice, the due process, protection of property, not criminalizing the status of being homeless, those things are being met by this policy.
Thank you, Bob. Oscar, did you want to comment?
Yeah. I mean, what about a friendly amendment to approve it and to reach out to the ACLU for comment or something like that? Does that?
I'm going to defer down the
Peter made the motion.
Oh, I'm asking if that's the sort of thing that you're interested in.
After the commentary I just heard, I trust the process. John's comments were very clear. Mm-hmm. Bob's comments were very clear that this is an open, it's because it's policy, it's not an ordinance, it's a different process. It continue to be tweaked using existing structures we have, like One Brattleboro, and communications like this within the room. So I trust that stated process.
Cool.
Isaac?
Yeah, so I actually came this evening thinking this looks good to me. I think it's important to have a clear policy and protocol and something to be able to we agree on this, and now we have something to hold ourselves to, and we can address if there's a deviation from this or concern. We can see, well, is this in the policy or not? So I actually think that we should have a policy, and this doesn't look bad to me. That said, I'm not an attorney, and I received a phone or a communication right before the meeting. I was actually walking over here and talking to the chair of the Planning Commission, who had reached out to me right before the meeting with a concern about something in this policy, a legality and a small technicality. It was right before the meeting, and I didn't have a chance to get all of the information, but I'd like to be able to hear what that concern is, as well as the concerns from the ACLU Vermont. And if our policy is in line, if this draft policy is in line with what they are recommending, great. But if there's a difference, I think we need to be able to take all of the feedback, all perspectives into account. Now, one of the things I've really appreciated about the conversation tonight is that we've heard from multiple perspectives. And that's how we make better decisions, is when we can hear from different people who are doing the work, who are experiencing the impact of the work. That's the and that helps us make better decisions. And for how long has the town basically had this this approach, this documented written approach?
About 3 years.
About 3 years. And so when I had suggested, it wasn't me who got this on the agenda. It was the board decided to put this on the agenda for tonight. But when I suggested and asked and proposed that we put this on the agenda, I was familiar with this documented approach, but I wasn't actually asking for a decision to be made tonight. And I really don't think that we have to have another 2-hour discussion in order to review some feedback from the ACLU of Vermont. I think it only could strengthen it. And before we formally adopt something, which is the motion to formally adopt this approach, I'd like some more information. So I actually, and I also think there's a number of people who brought up the question of, well, what about designated camping? Where could that? Is that something we want to explore further? And and I heard Liz, you say that state law says that people aren't allowed to camp on municipal property, but I'd like some clarity from that, legal clarification. But I don't want to talk about it tonight. We have to get to the budget. So I'm curious, Amanda, if you based on the concerns you had, if you are open to making a motion to table this.
Well, Peter's made a motion.
I don't think a tabling is necessary. I think what's happened in the room tonight what we've heard from our town manager, what we've heard from our town council, what we heard from the gracious person from the ACLU who presented, is that we actually have opened the door to further conversations, that we can tweak it, can be amended. It is a big body of work, like you said. We have other things to do tonight.
Yeah.
And so it would be great to be warned for a future meeting, to revisit and move on from there. That's my take.
I would like to hear from the 5 people who've signed up to comment, have a vote, and move on. And I think we could even have a break before we move on. So let's start with Gemma.
Again, Gemma Seymour, Representative Town Meeting District 8 and member of the Brattleboro Planning Commission. I just want to say that one of the things that has been really striking to me in this conversation and others recently is that these conversations surrounding so many of the issues in our town are all too often reminding me of that famous quote by Jeff Goldblum's character in the movie Jurassic Park. Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. I think it's really disappointing and frustrating to have to listen to town officials talk about and justify their authority to take certain actions, when what is actually at issue is whether or not they should take those actions. Authority has nothing at all to do with it. Whether that's the issue of enacting zoning regulations or clearing out encampments of unhoused people that are deemed to be a hazard or a violation. We know that the town has the authority to do this. The Supreme Court of the United States ruled unequivocally in City of Grant Pass, Oregon v. Johnson, that towns have the authority to prohibit camping on public lands. However, I would like to point out that contrary to what Madam Chairwoman said earlier, there is provision in the Brattleboro Ordinance for camping to be permitted on public lands in the town with the authorization of the town manager or the Department of Recreation and Parks director. Being that as it may, I think this town really should consider whether or not Article 7, Section 13300 should actually classify this as a criminal ordinance or whether it should be a civil offense. I'm not sure, because I am not an attorney, whether or not it needs to be classified as a criminal ordinance in order for certain remedies to be permitted by the town. But I, as a citizen, cannot really see any value in making this a criminal offense as opposed to a civil offense. Thank you.
Jane Coggleton.
Hello, I'm Jane. I'm from Brattleboro. I have a lot of questions and not a lot of time. I heard someone ask, where do people's bodies go? Where do people go? Literally, I'm wondering, are people present often when these encampment sweeps happen? Do they get handed a piece of paper? Or do they get swept? Is it easier when people are gone when they're found to be swept then? Or I hear that there's like visits and then the note is left and then they come back. Like some of these are clarifying questions, some of these are just concerns. I really want to be looking at how many stories are there of these sweeps leading to people like finding permanent housing? Are people being ensured that they found stability after? And in the moment, at 7:30 in the morning or at 10 p.m. or whatever, like clarifying, do these cleanups happen at night too? Because there is mention of like people being asked to leave in the middle of the night or in the darkness. Where do their bodies go those nights? In the morning, do they, and I really want to be key with like who is actually helping these people after they get moved. Is it 69A is a question, yes or no? Because a lot of people are ending up, I kind of think of spaces like 69A full of people doing unpaid labor, catching a lot of people who come in and they're like, oh, I have a question about a basic thing. I have a phone, I need a phone to call for my stuff. I also wanted to clarify the process of the phone number that I wrote down, so someone sees a piece of paper, they come, their stuff is gone, they see a piece of paper. The piece of paper has a phone number written on it. I'm not sure if it was said it was written in Sharpie. The people call the number, they get a voicemail. The voicemail includes a personal line to call. The person calls that number. They reach, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, one of the people on this team, the health team.
Jane, your
that
time's
person
up,
has
so wrap it
to
up.
call a colleague to connect with that human who maybe doesn't have a phone, who lost all their stuff. How does that colleague find that person and follow up to arrange a pickup? How do we ensure that? And I have a lot more questions. Were there consent for getting photos of these people's homes and belongings? And I maybe have one more. I have so many more questions. I'm really disturbed by like seeing people's personal property on display in this way. Is that okay with you all? That like someone
Jane,
came
your
into
time is
someone's
up.
stuff and is using it to sensationalize a non-emergency. Thank you.
Jane, we're going to talk. This isn't the last conversation that's going to happen.
Well, the other thing, too, though, I would recommend, because Assistant Chief Keir gave such a thorough presentation, I would recommend that Jane speak to Chuck later. Answer all those questions, because many of them have been touched on. Ivan Hennessy.
Hello, still Ivan Hennessy, still Brattleboro. Early on in the presentation, our town health officer mentioned that these are not criminal charges. There's nothing criminal, no criminal proceeding or anything with it, which in terms of not holding the threat of prison over people, not putting a bunch of stigmatism on their actions and stuff is great. But it kind of reflects the power imbalance that's on here. It's great from the town's point of view to be like offering this largesse that there's no criminal proceeding, but the fundamental result is still someone's stuff is taken and destroyed. And then because it's not criminal, there's no due process associated with that. There's no appeal process. There's nothing formal. It's just laid at your feet to make these decisions about people's stuff. And the end result is that they're still being punished for being poor and homeless by having their stuff taken away and destroyed. It's just a difficulty with points of view where it makes perfect sense from the point of view of the town and the people carrying the policy out. But it's still having a huge negative impact regardless of the technical detail of whether it's criminal or not.
I think we heard a very thorough presentation of the length that both the Public Works and the Health Department go to salvage people's belongings where possible. And you can have a conversation with them further if you like, but I think we've heard enough testimony about that. Dick DeGray?
My wife told me not to wear that hat if I got up to speak. Dick DeGray, District 8. I've heard some numbers thrown around, but can you give me the hard number on what it has cost the town for the cleanup? And I know that you have police escort you. You didn't mention them in the group of people when you were talking about
Dick,
police.
these questions
that
are
went
for the board.
I was just talking at them. You can answer the question. So I'm looking for the hard number of what it has cost the town. We should have that. I heard somebody say $1 million. I heard somebody say a lot of money. I'd like to know what that number is. I know that we have numbers for the cleanup in the solid waste budget where I don't believe that they belong. I believe they belong, if it's going to be public works, that's where that money should be, and not in the waste budget that's being proposed. I'd also like to know my answer, since I believe this is the public, about the bathroom question that I asked before about public bathrooms, because that is one of the issues that's been talked about for many years and has really never gone anywhere about having a public bathroom. And so if you would answer that question. The other question I have for Chuck and Mr. Pacheco is, do they encounter people when they go to make a cleanup that are there and want to take some of their belongings with them, even though they are considered hazardous? Do you allow them to take that material with them? So if you could answer that. And I have a deep appreciation for the people that do this. Can imagine putting on the job description that you have to clean up feces as a public works employee, or somebody who works in the fire department, how many people are going to be applying for the job. So I do appreciate things that our employees do that aren't on the job description, that they don't get credit for, and they do it every day. So I thank them for their service, and I do mean that because they know it, and I tell them all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Dick, I witnessed a cleanup myself. The select board was invited one Friday morning, and I attended. And it is incredibly difficult work, and Groundworks was there, and everybody was very professional, and it was really an example of our town employees doing the hardest work that they can on our behalf. Yes, Chuck?
Madam Chair, and I appreciate Mr. Gregori bringing it up, and I'm almost embarrassed that I didn't mention it. But law enforcement does play an instrumental part in this process. They are there on every encampment cleanup. They are there on every downtown cleanup to protect us, and they have a tremendous community network and relationships that we build upon. So we utilize our BRAT team, we utilize that police department on every single one, and without them we would not be successful. So I apologize for not mentioning the people that support us.
Great. And let me ask John to answer any other questions.
Well, so the restrooms, I think the library put together a resource guide a year and a half ago, and there were something like 24 publicly accessible bathrooms in the downtown. I don't recall the exact number. It was something in the 20s. We are adding an additional one at the new substation at the transportation center, and also understand that there are some publicly accessible bathrooms now also at 69A's property. So I think while by no means can we have a bathroom pop up for everyone who needs it right at that moment where they are. I don't think that's possible, but I think we have done a lot in that area, and there are quite a number of accessible areas in town. It just means that sometimes someone might have to get from one end of the downtown to another to use it. That I don't know that we can solve it in every block. So
Costs.
The cost.
I can help if you.
The cleanup costs, yes. Darren, do you have a sense of that?
So this is another thing that we're working on. This is the challenging part of hopefully creating a new way that we're tracking this type of work in 2027, because currently I can tell you what we've actually have removed of like things that were brought right to Triple T. I could give you a number. I don't have that right now. I can tell you it's over 6 tons of trash that we removed just from the downtown area. But the hope is with this new policy that by us putting it all into one containment, because there's times when we bring stuff to DPW that's stored, when it's not retrieved by anyone, that is going into DPW's dumpster that is being taken out of the general fund. And so it's challenging because that's being mixed in with trash coming from the facility itself. And so the hope is going into FY27, this new procedure happens, which we can really focus on calculating the cost just for what we're removing. And so we're working on that.
So Darren, those are that's the waste cost. But I think the broader question is staff time.
Yep, and that will be...
And that's, your department, fire department, police department, Becky's on her own. I hope everyone contributes to Groundworks.
And that's included. We're looking in FY27, going into that by tracking everything, so we really can give you a good answer on what costs.
Thank you very much. Heidi Fisher.
Sorry, can I ask one quick thing? Sure. Chuck, I assume the answer is yes, that if you're cleaning up my encampment and I'm there and I want to take stuff away, that would be fine.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. If people, it's their belongings.
Okay, and just to clarify, Dick, the 2 exterior 24-hour bathrooms at the substation were removed from the plan. So that was the change there.
Heidi, please.
Heidi Fisher, District 7. I have a quick question, and I don't want people to think it's coming from naivete, because I know it's a very complicated, nuanced question. Well, the answer would be very complicated and nuanced. But one of the things I've noticed that hasn't been part of the conversation tonight is accountability of the people whose belongings it is and whose encampments they are. And that there hasn't been just any discussion of their involvement of cleaning up the place. And I know that that's complicated, and who folks are, or if they're not there, or they're not identifiable. I mean, I realize there's levels of things, but I just want to throw out there that there's been no mention of that whatsoever tonight, and I think it's a missing piece of the puzzle.
Thank you, Heidi. Becky, would you like to address how people from encampments are brought to social services and what their needs and accountability might be? Can you discuss that at all?
In terms of the encampment and their personal property, or their needs around when we ask them if they'd like help?
Heidi's question went to their needs and personal property, but I think the greater question is when people receive what they need in terms of social services, are they also having an understanding of accountability in society?
I think that the part that we play in this really is the basic needs in the moment. The accountability part is not a sprint, that is a marathon, and something that we find comes with years of sometimes relationship building with each client. I can talk about an example of somebody that we went to an encampment with this team. I went with Harold, who's part of our outreach team. And because Harold had a relationship with this individual, when we knocked on his shelter, he was pleasantly surprised to see a familiar face. We were there with the Brat team, specifically Justin Johnston, who was able to give him a ride up to Groundworks. He, at that moment, wanted treatment. We worked with other community partners and got him a ride up to an open bed in a treatment facility within 4 hours. Part of that was that he was ready in the moment, but it was years of relationship building through human service that at the time he was ready. And without the collaboration of all the community partners we worked with, we would not have been able to have given him that opportunity and offered him that service. He is also interconnected with a team now that will be able to work with him afterwards, and has already started the process of housing applications in order to help get him more permanent housing and stability.
That's great. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Darren.
can I add one more thing? I kind of took the question a little differently. And so I will give an example of what an individual we dealt with all summer. We came on our morning cleanouts. We would cross paths with this individual. He was clean. He took care of the place. There wasn't trash thrown all over the ground. He understood. It was good morning every time we saw him. He respected the property he was on. There was no problem. We did not talk to him. It was a good morning, walk by. And so when an individual does respect the public space that they're on, and we have no concern of that area, we move. There's no concern from us. And so that's kind of how I took that question, and maybe it's
great.
I was wrong.
Wonderful.
So.
Thank you. Jessica, you're our last commenter.
Clicking all the buttons. Sorry. Can you hear me? Great. So thanks for letting me speak again. I just wanted to reiterate what I had said before, which was a clear ask to table the motion for a reasonable period of time so we can provide you with additional feedback. Just a note on some of the prior cases that we settled, to the best of my knowledge, in none of those towns was it a situation where there was no place where a person was authorized to be able to go. And the reality right now, and I think everybody, this is why I want to be able to come back and do a presentation, to be able to give more time to do this review. The data clearly shows we are out of shelter space. Not everybody is able to get into the GA emergency housing program. There might be some anecdotes of a person who is able to get services right away, but that is rare. I also did want to just circle over to Grants Pass. So one of the things that the Supreme Court said in Grants Pass, even though the plaintiffs were not successful on the Eighth Amendment claim that they were making, was that there is the possibility that folks would have other protections under state law or state constitutions. And Grants Pass ended up getting sued under state law in Oregon. And as a result of the settlement that was reached, now there's protected space for people experiencing homelessness to be able to camp in their bathrooms, etc. So I do encourage you to table this so that we have an opportunity to provide more feedback.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, just in recognition of the guidance from the ACL, or the request from the ACLU of Vermont, and the desire to protect the town of Brattleboro and to be able to have all the information we need to adopt a policy, I'd like to make a motion to table this motion.
Bob, would you remind us what the rules on tabling are?
My recollection of Robert's rules is when there's a motion to table, it's not debatable, and it's a majority vote.
So we have the motion to table first and then the original motion?
Right. You have to take up the motion to table first. There's no discussion on that. It's not debatable, and you vote on that first. If it fails, if it passes, you've tabled it, and then you would pick it up from the table at a future meeting, which is different from postponing to a definite date, which we had that issue last time. But if it fails, then you would go on to the motion that's been made.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right. Isaac has made a motion to table the motion. All select board members in favor of tabling this motion, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All right. All those members not in favor of tabling the motion, please raise your hand and say nay.
Nay.
Nay. All right, that passes 3-2. Yes?
I would like further guidance on what the board would like us to do between
I would like
now.
further guidance on what the ACL is going to bring here that's going to ACLU.
Would you like a motion for that or just discussion?
Whatever, just direction. I
Yeah,
need
so
direction.
I would love to warn, I would like to warn this discussion for a future meeting after or coinciding with feedback from the ACLU and the Planning Commission. And also, you know, I had suggested to 69A, I said, hey, give us a, where could trash receptacles be? You know, what are, just to start keep the conversation going and move it for a future meeting.
Oscar?
Hopefully not as long.
Oh, certainly. My feeling is, I mean, we haven't voted on the motion, we've tabled it, we haven't rejected it, it's the town's policy, it continues to be in place. All that happened is we did not vote on a motion to whatever officially confirm. So I wouldn't think that any change would occur between now and this motion passing at a later date, is my read on sort of looking generally over at Bob and Hannah, but there's nothing in tabling this motion that rejects this policy or anything like that.
But with respect to, like, I'm not clear what you need in order to make a decision on the motion that was on the table.
I mean,
like, what is the information that you're looking for that would allow us to move forward on this issue?
Can I get something off my chest?
Go right ahead.
So we've tabled a motion that we've just spent 2.5 hours discussing. Do we suspect that we're not going to spend another 2.5 hours relitigating this thing, right? Because of some veiled threat from the ACLU, right? They're going to come in, they're going to sue us? I don't think so, all right? This town is like right up to their eyeballs with compassion and the way we deal with things. I'm hearing a majority of us saying we don't have a problem with this. We just want to keep talking about it. That's all I'm hearing. We just want to keep talking about it, keep kicking the can down the road.
That's not really my policy. I have no problem with this.
Every single one of us has said they didn't have a problem with this policy.
That's right.
So what is there to discuss?
Because we had a 3-hour period of public comment and heard a lot of interesting things, and the policy's already in effect, and I'd like to, you know, get some follow-up on those things before we confirm something that's already in place. And I will also say that the agenda item was a discussion with an optional motion. The goal of this was not specifically to pass this motion, and I think maybe it was an hour longer, but this was actually a really great conversation. I'm glad we had it, and I think it wasn't time wasted. So I get it, and if we had voted no to table, I then would have voted yes on the policy. If it's 3 hours again next time, I will be very sad, but I don't think it's going to be.
Point of order. It's a question for our town attorney, which is, if there's a motion to table and it passes, does that not cease discussion of that agenda item?
John asked for guidance.
The motion to table has passed, so it's been tabled. As far as before you move on to your next agenda, that's up to the chair in terms of moving on to the next agenda item.
And I respect, John, the town manager's request for more information. And, John, have you received guidance from board members?
I got vague direction to get feedback from the ACLU, bring that back to you, and then you will be ready to consider this.
So
I think it's pretty clear.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Were there any other, I mean, that was the main thing.
Okay.
That's the one thing that concerns me and makes me nervous for the town of Brattleboro.
And Amanda also mentioned the Planning Commission feedback.
That Planning Commission, some feedback from the Planning Commission could be helpful.
Because Tom Mazakowski had a question.
Well, the other thing, I'm just going to anecdotally say something. Why not? It's getting late. It's going to be a late meeting. This term unpaid labor was referred to many times. I call that volunteerism, and I believe in volunteerism, and I think it's okay. I think stating that someone is providing unpaid labor, it casts a very, it's just, it as a laborer myself, like as we are a room of laborers and volunteers, can we just call it volunteerism? We choose to do it, because we love what we do. We love the people we work with. It's important. So thank you.
Okay, let's thank our panelists so very much for your excellent presentation and your time. And let's take a break for 5 whole minutes. Let's talk about our schedule and the lateness of the evening. It's been recommended to me that we not continue our budget discussion this evening and that we have a separate meeting to do that, but that we do continue with the reconsideration of the trash bag motion and the consent agenda item that was pulled.
The trash bag thing sort of makes sense to me after the budget thing. So just the thought of pushing both of those to the next meeting and
just discuss the HVAC.
Yeah, just my thought.
What do you think, Amanda?
I think that's a great idea. I appreciate you bringing that up so much.
How about the gentleman to my left? Isaac?
I'm sorry, I'm tired, and I would love to come back to these questions with fresh mind. So I think discussing the HVAC, should do that.
We have to discuss the HVAC. Peter? Yeah. So the next question is when?
Right.
Are we available on Thursday?
I am not available on Thursday.
Are you available next Tuesday? Can you make yourself available next Tuesday?
That's a better question now, isn't it? Can I make myself available? I can probably sort it out for the good of the town.
Excellent. How about
yes, please. I would love to be here next Tuesday.
All right.
Tuesday the 13th?
Tuesday the 13th.
Yep.
Isaac?
Yes, I'll make myself available.
And John?
We'll do our best. I got to make sure. I got to make sure BCTV and staff and everyone else is available. But
our crack
we will do
legal
our
team
best.
Yep. All right, good. And I know I commend the public for remaining for this budget issue. I also commend the staff. All the department heads are here, ready to go, and I appreciate that as well. So let's move to the tabled item from the replace rooftop unit at Central Station. And we have a memo in our consent, but I'd like to ask the fire chief to join us. Jay, good evening.
Good evening.
John, do you want to introduce this matter?
No, I'll just turn it over to the chief to explain his thinking on this one.
Great.
Okay, so I kind of put together a quick little dialogue here to answer some of the questions that came up during the public comment. So our current situation, at the starting of the colder weather, we experienced a loss of heat that feeds the office area, the administrative area, and the ready rooms at the fire department. The existing rooftop unit was manufactured in 2017. During the installation, this rooftop unit went through I would say, catastrophic failure. It actually exploded and injured the person that was installing it. I don't have a lot of details on what exactly occurred, but somehow we ended up with this rooftop unit continuing to be installed and in service in the fire station. So because it was manufactured in 2017, there's no warranty coverage for this. The unit is unsafe. The heat exchanger is rotted with a hole in the heat exchanger, which is releasing carbon monoxide into the atmosphere of the firehouse. So due to that, we had to shut it down. And the station temperatures are dropping to below 60s in those office areas. Now we left the blowers on because the bay floors are heated with a boiler radiant floor heat. And what that exchanger or what the airflow does is it pulls air from the bay floor, circulates it through that rooftop unit, and then pushes it out the office area. The air temperature of the air coming out is usually around 58 to 62 degrees. So when you're sitting at your desk, it's rather chilly. So to supplement this, we've got some plug-in electric heaters to keep it at least 65 degrees in those areas. The existing refrigerant is being phased out. That's in that rooftop unit. So the new rooftop unit will use a R454B, which is more environmentally friendly. So we looked at repairs, and the manufacturer does not offer a replacement heat exchanger, so that was out of the question. The only viable solution was the full replacement of that rooftop unit. Initially, when we started this, we were looking at replacing the heat exchanger and then replacing the rooftop unit maybe in the next budget year or FY28, but this became a non-starter for us. So our proposed solution, Control Technologies, is a company we use to update all our thermostats throughout the firehouse. We'd like to use them as a sole provider. They're the ones that are servicing our HVAC system. They have extensive knowledge of our building and automation system, and they have the ability they have the rooftop unit, and they can install a New York rooftop unit with the existing controls, and it's an emergent repair due to loss of heat in the fire station. The scope of work includes the removal and disposal of the old unit, installation of the new rooftop unit, all the reconnections, integration of the system, startup and commissioning. So the estimated cost for this project is $43,355. That includes materials, labor, crane service, and commissioning. It also assumes that Superintendent Tyler, or DPW Director Tyler, is going to help us out with some unloading and moving to try to cut some expenses. So the funding source, I've been watching select boards meetings since October, and I understand the emergency funds and those are dwindling. We're trying to stay away from using those. So to be fiscally responsible, I know it's not a fire truck, but I kind of evaluated our funds and where our funds lie. And right now we have a balance going into the fire truck replacement fund for $110,000. So my proposal is to take the $44,000 out of that fund, which would bring that down for what's going into the capital improvement for this fiscal year, but then add it to the FY27 budget to get that back into the capital plan. So overall, we're not decreasing that capital fund. We're just going to put it back next year. This was an unforeseen equipment failure. If you remember from my initial budget proposal, I had put $20,000 in capital to support future replacements of things like the roof, bay doors, HVAC, windows, etc. This has never been done before. This is kind of my first year of being able to project the budget, and that was a thing I noticed, was we had no capital replacement plan for any of these failures. Unfortunately, as I put this plan in place, I already had an equipment failure, and here we are. So the time frame we're looking at is once we can say yes to this, they expect 7 to 10 days to turn around a couple of parts they need, and then the installation and commissioning will take 24 hours once the work begins. So immediate action on this is needed to restore the heat to our building and ensure safety and comfort for the staff and the visitors. It complies with all environmental standards and operational reliability. It does come with a 1-year installation warranty and a 5-year warranty on the rooftop unit. My requested action, we approve the Contracting Control Technologies as a sole provider for rooftop unit replacement at the Central Fire Station using funds from the FY26 Fire Engine Replacement Capital Fund up to $44,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
board, do you have questions?
Sure.
Go right ahead.
Thank you for putting that together on the fly. Also, I appreciate that. This is a hopeful question. Probably the answer is no, but you said a balance of 110K in one of the fire truck capital fund. That's not like an unexpected surplus of 110K. That's just cash on it. Okay, that's it.
And that was so originally that was 185,000. We already took 75,000 out because we lost the chief's truck. So that brought it down to 110. So that's the number that's left.
Okay. My thoughts are pretty simple. I'm glad that you've added the stuff to the capital plan going forward. That's going to be really helpful. There's loss of heat. We have to replace it. And I understand the concerns, but we are planning to make this up in next year's budget in 7 days. So I'm not particularly bent out of shape about the funding source. It could come from unassigned fund balance, and it would be made good the same way. So I am on board.
Anyone else on the board? Amanda?
Yeah, quick question. So in the back of materials, it says warranty details will be confirmed during the final agreement, but that's already been determined as 5 years for the warranty.
Yep.
Oh, and also, I mean, one really compelling thing for me was the refrigerant, the old refrigerant, I'm going to call it, the R410A. I mean, that is getting phased out universally on so many heating and cooling things, so that you can't actually repair it. Correct.
Right.
So, like phasing up to a more modern, fuel efficient model is where to go.
Yep.
Or energy efficient. Okay. Cool. Great.
And we had that issue at a much larger scale at the skating rink.
Right.
The gentleman to my left, do you have comments?
You need it, you got to have it. I'm here for you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for the explanation.
Thank you.
Motion.
Why don't you make a motion and we'll open it up to the public.
All right, I'll motion to approve the fire department to proceed with Contracting Control Technologies, Inc. as the sole provider for the rooftop unit replacement at the Central Fire Station using funds from the FY26 Fire Engine Replacement Capital Fund.
Thank you. Members of the public wish to speak to this issue? Kate?
O'Connor, Brattleboro. I want to thank you for taking it off the consent agenda and discussing it now. It was never an issue of whether we needed to make this replacement. It's that we're sort of getting in this habit of spending money on things out of funds for which it was not intended. So I think it was just hearing it and hearing the explanation and now finding out that you are going to replace this money. I think it's just really important that there's 100% transparency. So I hope in the future we could avoid putting things on the consent agenda, but I do want to say thank you to the chief, and I understand why you need it. It's never an issue of whether you need it or not. It was where the money was coming from. So thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Anyone else? Heidi?
Thank you, Kate. I agree with all of what she just said. I just want to ask, was there a bidding process for this project? Because my understanding is that all projects over $10,000 for the town have to have 3 proposals, et cetera, et cetera. Did that happen?
No, and the reason that didn't happen is because of the emergency of the nature, and the town policy states that because it's an emergent repair, we don't have to go through a bidding process.
Dick?
I think I heard you say, Jay, that and I remember we took $75,000 out for the assistant chief's vehicle last year, and now $44,000 here. So we've taken that fund that was pretty close to funding that replacement ambulance, and we've now reduced it to roughly $125,000 that we're going to make up. I'm surprised that you can't find $43,000. You still have roughly 6.5 months left or 6 months left of budget, and that you couldn't find this money in your budget. And we do have other funds available that we could have taken this money. So I hope that somebody makes a motion to change where we take the funds from, because the taxpayers are going to end up making up the difference here when we have other monies available to use. Thank you.
Jay, would you like to comment on that?
Sure. So I did look at our operational funds. Everybody's aware of our overtime is over budget right now. Currently, our staffing line, we show a $500, a projected $500 savings because of our 6 vacancies that we have, but that's going to go towards overtime. Our station repair fund is down to $10,000. We really have we run such a tight budget on the operational side that I'm at 50% of most all my lines, which is where we should be for this year. So we are spending our funds appropriately. $43,000 would kill our funds. We wouldn't be able to make that back up. And I have no place to cut it from.
Thank you. Oscar?
You said $500 on salary, I assume $500,000.
Yeah. $500,000
I figured.
On salary.
Dick, did you have a specific funding source in mind?
I thought we changed the name to the ARPA funds that were left.
That's just revolving loan fund now, I think. That's where
ARPA is not revolving loan.
And what about how much money is actually left? I know John has a prediction of putting $200,000 into our undesignated account. How much money is left in that account? I mean, if there's $50,000 in there, then let's use it. Why do we want to put a burden on the taxpayers a couple of years down the road when we have this money here? $50,000.
We could always have cat licenses, Dick.
Where's Hillary?
I think you should bring it up again.
Could town manager talk about funds available and any other available use for departments to take care of such emergencies?
The only other funds I'm aware of, I mean, we could just use unassigned fund balance, but I don't really see the difference. Like, there's not a big difference between what's being proposed and doing that. You could use revolving loan fund for this if you wanted to use that money instead of for something else. It's really the only options I can think of. So.
I don't recommend that. I mean, there are provisions for the revolving loan fund, and an HVAC replacement is a stretch.
And if we wanted to make, this money comes out of our bank account one way or another. If we want to make that good later from a different funding source, we can. Yeah, it's a little bit of just moving numbers around, but we can choose not to add this money back into the FY27 budget and save the taxpayers the money that way, and then that money will come out of the unassigned fund balance, and it's all, the bottom line will be the same, but it's an option.
So like a replenish strategy.
Yeah, so I would say we can approve this now, spend the money, and then if we want to do something with how we make it good later, we'll always have that option. But
okay, well, we'll leave it to Jay and his brain trust to come up with some good ideas. We have a motion? You read a motion.
I did it brilliantly, too, I have to say.
It was perfect.
Somebody want to show it to me?
Yeah, hold on.
You did do it brilliantly.
Thank you.
I mean, because you ad hoc'd it, and I was really impressed.
Yep.
Okay, I got it. Peter has made a motion to approve the fire department to proceed with contracting Control Technologies, Inc. as the sole provider for the rooftop unit replacement at Central Fire Station using funds from the FY27 Fire Engine Replacement Capital Fund. All select board members in favor of this motion, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
It's 5-0. I'd like one more motion, please.
move to adjourn.
All right, all in favor of adjournment, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, BCTV. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
And
Jay.
thank you, Seth.
Do we have things to sign?
Oh, yeah, things to sign. Thank you, Amanda.
You're welcome.